Welcome to Fiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendations for novels, comment below.
Please join my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/fictionaudiobook.
Chapter 301, Immortal Severance End. 300 chapters, hype. /rower, /. There wasn't much time left. He needed to make a choice. Before it was too late. It was true he could continue to strike down at the beast. But eventually, time and time again, it would resurface. Healed from whatever injuries it suffered. He could drink potions to recover, but no matter how much he tried to force his body to handle the side effects of continuous potion usage, he wouldn't be able to cope with both at the same time. And then, at some point, he wouldn't be able to push it down anymore. He had to make a choice. Inhale, /. Silver took a deep breath as he closed his eyes. Shuffle, /. Smile, /. Question mark. For Talvi's confusion, Silver suddenly smiled. An idea springing in his mind. Hey, he said as he remained still, not turning around as he faced the Swamp King. TTH. Conversely, Talvi trembled as she faced the monster. Every cell in her body screamed in fear. They told her to run, but her mind told her to stay, even if reluctantly. How was the man before her so calm? What drove him? No, an adventurer forward. If you're here, it means you're ready to die, right? He asked as he rested his halberd on his shoulder. Huh. Heh. I like that. He mumbled to himself as he touched his chin. Huh. Talvi's expression suddenly changed as her cheeks got slightly flushed. It's not every day I see someone like you. So. Fooish, /. The Swamp King swung its claws at Silver, trying to squash him down. Kia. Bomb, /. The claw slammed down on them. What happened? I'm still. Talvi slowly opened her eyes, and what she saw startled her. Opposite to her, Silver remained with one arm raised, holding the Swamp King's claw as he smiled. Underneath them, the ground cracked and shattered, but it remained sturdy thanks to an invisible force. Let's make a gamble, you and I. Silver said as he pushed the claw aside momentarily before punching upward. Boom, /. Rower, /. With one strike, the entire arm of the Swamp King exploded, and the beast retreated to the spring again. This time, Silver did not even spare it a glance, fed up with its actions. Gee gamble. What are you even? But Silver wasn't paying attention to her anymore. You three, how long do you all plan to watch? I can't keep this up forever. Against her expectations, Silver turned to the side, speaking to a bush near them. Topple, /. From within, a group of 3 girls awkwardly fell onto the cold, hard ground. Sizzle, /. Kia. Get off me, Keed. Ah. TTO2 close. Momiji exclaimed as she saw her hair corrode in a small puddle of poison. Obviously, Momiji, Keed, and Haruheim finally arrived after their small adventure. Who are you 3? Talvi asked as a confused glare formed on her face. I don't remember seeing them before. They look pretty unique. They seem to know each other, but I would have been notified of guests. I told you we shouldn't have hidden. Keed exclaimed as her arms trembled as cold sweat formed on her skin. Her face was so close to a puddle of poison she could see her reflection in it. Its smell was so strong it made her faint. Wait. Maybe it was the toxins. Don't try to mix the truth again. You were the one who didn't want to break the moment again. Momiji exclaimed as she grew even angrier. Titehi. Gulp, /. She's really angry this time. Keed smiled helplessly as she slowly pushed herself out of harm's way. Swallowing dry as she avoided locking gaze with her friend. Meanwhile, someone else began to run. See Captain. Haruheim exclaimed as she ran towards him, only to stumble midway and be caught by him. Exclamation point. Red, / whistle, /. Because of the stone fragments on the ground, Haruheim quickly lost her balance and fell. It was obvious this would happen. And the moment she fell onto his arms, she instantly got super red, hiding her face from everyone. On his chest. Somehow, she felt less embarrassed doing that than getting away from him, which was certainly odd. She's good. Even in this situation. At the same time, Keed and Momiji watched in awe at Haruheim's technique, baffled by her courage in making a move even in this chaotic and severe situation. Of course, they couldn't fathom the boring truth that, in reality, she wasn't trying at all and was merely an airhead. Talvi looked at them all with a hollow stare. Smiling as he ignored Haruheim's blush, Silver tapped her head as he turned his head to face the spring, saying, "You're right on time." Slash slam, slash. Slash clang, slash. The Swamp King was trying to attack them, but an invisible barrier blocked it whenever it tried. So in its endless rage, it could only continue to slam its fillers on the air. Slash sweat, slash. But this was taking its toll on Silver as even with each passing moment, his expression grew a little paler. "I can't keep this for long, so I'll keep this brief," he said as he grew serious, and so did the others. "Enough playing, time to work." He turned back to face the girls, proud. "First. Good job leading her here, Momiji, keyed. But this is enough from you too. Stay back, and I'll take care of the rest. I don't want to sound rude, but this is still too much for the both of you to handle." "No problem," Keed exclaimed as she saluted. "There were some complications on the way, but a report can wait, I imagine." Momiji replied as she tried to regain her elegance. "Yeah, we can leave the celebrations to later." Silver nodded as he pushed his hand down, and with it, the Swamp King was shoved onto the spring. Slash roarar, slash. Slash tremble, slash. But soon enough, the spring began to quake. Huff. "It's climbing again. Haruheim, please," Silver said as he let go of her, turning around to shield them. "I'm getting tired. What an annoying monster." "Yes," she said as she clasped her hands together. That was everything she needed to hear. Finally, it was time for her to show how much she had improved. Grow. Haruheim began to chant, her body shining in golden, divine light. She focused, breathing deeply between each chant as she gathered magical power onto herself. "What's going on?" Talvi asked as she grew confused. "We're beating the Swamp King. I know it's a bit late and all. But I said it before. Are you willing to take a gamble?" Talvi's expression twisted, her tone firm and heavy as she stomped the ground. "A gamble? Do you want me to gamble with everyone's life at stake? That's the fate of a leader. Of someone who puts someone else's life before theirs." He grasped his halberd tightly, adding, "But I believe there's a way for you to live. That doesn't sound that bad, does it?" "What? I don't understand. Just what are you planning? What magic is she even casting?" Slash chuckle, slash. "You see. I'm not someone who enjoys being given options and told to choose one." "Huh? Where did that come from?" "I'm very stubborn. That's what people usually tell me. So, like always, I choose the third option. The one I made myself." Slash boom, slash. Silver slammed his feet on the ground, jumping high towards the sky. Slash splash, slash. At the same time, the Swamp King re-emerged from the spring, opening its jaw wide as it went after him, ignoring everyone else. "Haruheim. Cast your blessing on the girl," Silver said with a smirk as he got ready to intercept the monster. "As for you." "And me?" Talvi asked as she saw the Swamp King close its jaw around Silver. "You better." Slash snap, slash. The Swamp King closed its jaw around Silver, causing Momiji, Keed, and Talvi's expressions to darken as their stomachs grew cold. Things couldn't end like that. Right. Slash slash, slash. But of course they wouldn't. Slash bam, slash. Slash splatter, slash. "You better start chanting," Silver exclaimed out loud as he used his halberd to cleave across the Swamp King's mouth. Slash push, slash. With a powerful jolt, Silver pushed the Swamp King down the spring with telekinesis once again, diving after it with a wide grin across his lips. But before he fell, he exclaimed, "I'll give you a chance to prove yourself, to free your people, your own way. I'll hold it off, so start chanting." I wasn't intending to share the excelia of this adventure, but things went too far. Let's make some history today, slash splash, slash. Like that, Silver dove onto the murky waters of the corrupted swamp, leaving behind 3 girls with pale expressions as they witnessed his suicide firsthand. Did he just?" Talvi asked as a bead of sweat fell from her forehead, albeit it was hard to notice from all the rain falling around her. "He did." Keed replied in a monotone as all emotion vanished from her body. "How can he even? I feel like I'll turn to mush if I even as much touch it. First-class adventurers are something else." Beside her, Momiji was so shocked she couldn't speak anymore. Grow. Confine divine offerings within this body. Meanwhile, Haruheim continued to chant, her body increasingly growing brighter as energy gathered around her. Golden wisps began forming around her body, causing her golden hair and fun to shine even further, casting light onto this otherwise gruesome dark. This golden light bestowed from above. Into the hammer and into the ground, may it bestow good fortune upon you. The strange, ephemeral light coming from the Renor caused Talvi to hesitate as she reconsidered her plans momentarily. Yes, she understood. That at the end of the day, there was only one thing she could do now. Inhale, liberate, blood bonds. Come, winter's balance. Dance, snow queen. Talvi began to chant, the rain seemingly converging on her as it spiraled down the ground, twinkle, . Blue sparks of light began gathering around her with each verse, their power increasing with every word. Obey my true name. Be warned, close away. Go back to paradise. My dream, fasten. Into tomorrow's limit, thousand-year ice castle, Talvi exclaimed as her expression grew serene, power consolidating around her. Grow, Haruheim said as she raised her hands high in the sky, her chant coming to its climax. Yukai no Kazuchi. She exclaimed as the golden light jumped from her to Talvi, illuminating the skies in its golden splendor as a spiral of magic descended upon her. Beltane Tromare. At the same time, Talvi finished her chant. Empowered by the soothing golden light, her body grew ephemerally, a warm sensation spreading inside her. Power like none before. The feeling of having her vessel evolving, growing beyond its limit. The feeling of shedding her mortality. Flash. A curtain of blue light exploded with her at the center, pushing the rain and everything around her aside except the girls beside her. All the dirt and loose debris were flung aside, being cleansed by her poison barrier. Bubble, splash. At the same time, the spring exploded with light, and the Swamp King was pushed onto the open air like a fish railed onto a boat. Roar, flash. Sizzly, slash. The blue flash permeated onto the Swamp King's body, and for a moment, it grew still, confused, baffled. Until. Roheawayer, slash. It cried in pain and distress. Sizzle, slash. From the inside out, its body began to burn and rot, and despite being submerged in the spring, its body did not heal. No matter how much it squirmed and drank, none of the spring's endless vitality seemed to seep onto it. Invisible and ever-present, it was as if a film enveloped its body. Crackle, slash. Meanwhile, its gargantuan body began to collapse, one root at a time. Without the support of the spring's endless vitality, the Swamp King could not sustain its own overgrown body and powers, causing it to regress to its original appearance. Shine, slash. And paradoxically to its dying state, the spring quickly recovered its luster as the leech corrupting it had been dealt with. Soon to be would be more correct. Huff. Thud, slash. Haruheim. At the same time, Haruheim began gasping for air, almost falling to the ground as she grew pale and anemic. In less than 20 minutes, she used her magic twice. And to her, despite her training, using it in such short succession still left her on the verge of mind zero as all blood seemed to drain from her face. She grew so weak she needed someone to support her. Although even that seemed much as she was on the verge of losing consciousness. Beside her, Talvi watched in a daze as she saw the spring recover to its former glory, a color she had never seen or even heard of before. No, she had heard of its splendor. From history books and her goddess. Tales of a time long gone. A fable no less, made reality by none other than her. A pure emerald green with a tint of blue and the transparency of a beautiful meadow, a lake within a small clearing in this ancient jungle. A mystical place to be worshipped and respected. It was almost as if she could see heaven reflected on its surface. This was it, the true unadulterated form of the mythical spring of life. Badam, slash. She watched it all with open arms and a fast-beating heart. Her magic did not affect her much. In the first place, it wasn't taxing to cast, and even though its effect had increased, it was still rather light on that department. Regardless of the fact, her stats had not changed at all. Even if she had become level 2, Talvi never had any stats to begin with. Her body may have grown slightly stronger, but the boost from level 1 to 2 was only significant if there was something to increase in the first place. Right now, she was still weak enough to be defeated by an ordinary, unblessed knight. No, even a farmer would take her down. Maybe even an old woman would win against her if they were to do a showdown. Regardless. It's beautiful, splash, slash. Of course. Even if the spring had been cured, the fight was still not over. Roar, slash. The Swamp King raged as its body fell apart, growing smaller by the second. As its protective barrier made from vines and its strange ability shattered, its real body was revealed. The shadows of its ancient appearance, hidden away from the sun for centuries. Albeit. Not for long. Roar, slash. Flip, slash. Suddenly, the rampaging beast was pulled underwater, vanishing amidst the chaotic waves and bubbles. Everyone watched in horror and anticipation. But even as the minutes passed, nothing happened. Somehow, they all began to feel a rising sense of accomplishment, victory and satisfaction. They felt safe within this little heaven. Is it over? Momiji asked as she tried to maintain her composure. It's not resurfacing, so it must be at least heavily injured, no. Keed replied as she looked at her reflection in one of the clear puddles of spring water. To think a place could change so much from merely one monster. No wonder the elders said the outside world was dangerous. My trip to Arario was truly blessed. Or instead, I should thank the familiars for clearing many of the dangerous monsters in the ocean. Oh, over. Talvi mumbled out loud, still unable to believe what had just happened. Is it really over? Everything, /shuffle, / / jump, / Talvi. I'm here too. Huh. URG. Can you speak any louder? Just when things couldn't get any less chaotic, Uskari and Ladari appeared from the woods, seemingly ready to fight as they held their blades with the determination to die here and now. Only to stay still in confusion as nothing seemed to be happening. What's going on? Ladari asked as he realized something was off. Unfortunately for him, even with his great senses and intelligence, he couldn't immediately understand what was happening, as it was hard to explain without witnessing it firsthand. Why was everyone standing still? The spring also seemed a little odd. For starters, this was his first time this deep in the swamp, so he didn't know if this was normal. Was this even the spring of life? But it had to be. Still, things seemed a little too peaceful for the nest of his arch-nemesis. The Swamp King. Talvi said with emotion as she touched her chest. She could feel it, her connection to the beast. Everything with her barrier, friend or foe. She could feel them all. And just a few moments ago, the feeling of her sole enemy, the Swamp King, disappeared. But so did Silver's. However, it was likely not anything bad, as he likely just dove deeper than her barrier could cover, yet, before she could feel anything else, her barrier returned to her, its effective time dissipating on its own. In the first place, her poison barrier wasn't meant to last long. It was like a flash of energy, contaminating everything it passed through before vanishing on its own. As its name suggested, it was still a barrier, so it did protect those within it, but such effect was so flimsy it was best removed from its description. That was why, instead of a barrier, seeing it as a bomb was more accurate. Still, even if the Swamp King had yet to fall, as long as her barrier reached its core, there was little to worry about, as the beast would retreat to its nest and hibernate as planned. In the end, Beltane was saved, and she kept her life, a feat she never thought possible in all her years growing to become a priestess. There was always a first for everything. It seems we're a bit late. Uskari said with a frown as he looked around, somewhat understanding the situation. All right, who was he trying to fool? Of course he understood nothing. Meanwhile, Ladari remained stoic as he always did, looking around as he guarded for any possible signs of danger. For now, Talvi was okay, and that was everything that mattered to him. Silver. Haruheim's words were weak and full of concern. Her eyes darted around as she tried to stand straight on her own and look for him. Neither Keed nor Momiji said anything. They didn't know what to say, there was little to say in the first place. Were they meant to announce the possible death of their captain? As if there was no way that guy would die, at worst he. /bubble/ exclamation point. As they waited patiently for Silver's return, their stomachs growing cold with each passing second, the spring began to bubble, causing everyone to grow cautious. Could it be that after everything they did, after gathering all of these impossible odds, that their efforts were futile? Ladari and Uskari got ready, and worse came to worse. They would sacrifice themselves here today. If it meant Beltane could live to see the light of day. They didn't know of Talvi's poison barrier, but how could she explain when she herself did not understand what just transpired? /splash/ But their warriors wouldn't be answered today. Phew. Aha. This feels great. What a day to be alive. Silver said out loud as he walked out of the spring. Like a movie heartthrob, Silver slowly climbed out of the edge of the spring, his hands in his hair as the pure emerald water washed over his face, shoulders, and chest. His bare chest now revealed to all, it was quite stimulating given everything that just happened before. It was a complete turnover of all their perspectives. /step/ Before they could rejoice at his well-being and the triumphant return of their hero, Silver stepped forward, climbing out of the spring with a large smile. Muffin. /thud/ HHHA Haruheim San. Both Keed and Momiji exclaimed as they saw Haruheim fall backward, her face flushed red. Just like hers, their face was also equally red, and at that moment, Keed blocked Momiji's view, causing the latter to frown. "You can't look. You're too young," she exclaimed in deep embarrassment as she also closed her eyes, only to open both of them and stare intently without a single shred of hesitation. "BB by the heavens. Amaterasu-sama. We're the same exact age," Momiji exclaimed in anger as she tried to get out of her friend's firm grasp. Alas, the difference in their statuses made Momiji was utterly unable to even move Keed off her spot. Ah. Meanwhile, Talvi's expression was a mix of embarrassment and shock as she didn't know how to react. //. But to save the day, both Uskari and Ladari approached her with the blink of an eye, each blocking one of her eyes quickly before she could take a deep glance at that thing. Uskari shook his head from left to right, acting like the experienced elder he was, the 100-year-old elf said. "That's a no-no. You're not ready for that yet. That son of a... Couldn't he be a bit more careful? I really want to give him a piece of my mind, but if I do that, I'll end up knocked out cold." Talvi felt betrayed in many ways, replying in a very low tone as she grew sheepish. Why you? I am. I'm an adult." Despite that, she didn't try to take a peek, remaining still as steam seemingly came from her ears. All of his stress escaping through his mouth, Ladari exhaled loudly, showing a rare emotion, helplessness as he realized his sister was already nearing that age. "Once this is over, it may be time for you to learn a thing or two from Lady Bera. I feared this day would come. The priestess bloodline must continue, even if their duty has been relinquished today. I was afraid to relay the details of such to her. To the point, I feared if it doesn't matter anymore. Still. Looks like it's time." However, Uskari laughed drily, saying, "Really, Mun? I know you're helpless around women, but at least be a bit sensible. What could Bera even teach her when it's been 1,000 years she's had any action? And out of everyone? Her? Really? Please. Don't speak like that," Ladari replied as he sighed in annoyance. "Not when it's been over 30 since you had any action. I wasn't even alive then." To preserve his friend's fragile ego, Ladari remained silent. At the same time, #. WWY's your expression like that? Hestia asked as she saw Bera frown. Bera smiled as her expression twisted, saying, "How to put it? I suddenly feel like hitting something. One of my children is cursing me. Who is it this time? Why are you looking at me? Who knows? Kia. Glare. Obviously, Silver was but naked. Following his declaration of victory, he dove onto the corrosive waters of the spring, ready to sacrifice himself to buy time for his companions to finish their chant and land the decisive blow against the ancient monster once and for all. Or so it seemed to them. Silver had no such plans. First and foremost, Silver challenged the Swamp King to gather high-quality Excelia, which is why he told Haruheim to use her magic on Talvi and not himself. His fancy words were mostly to justify his choices, although it would be a lie to say it was all an act. He only needed a valid reason not to lose his Excelia, and he did have one. Otherwise, he would have empowered himself. It was a gamble. He didn't know if by leveling up, Talvi's spell would increase in power and effect. After all, not all magic fell under that category. Haruheim's spell is one such case. It's not like her spell would level up someone twice if she became level 2. Maybe she could chant it without falling unconscious, but until she became level 2, nothing could be proven nor would anything change. Nor was there any prediction for it doing so. That was Silver's gamble. If Talvi's spell grew stronger, then there was no mystery. The Swamp King would lose the effects of the spring, being effectively isolated from it. The rest was self-explanatory. Within the corroded waters, Silver fought the beast valiantly for the few arduous seconds that both Haruheim and Talvi chanted, and for those seconds, Silver grew rather close to fulfilling their fear and not returning. His body was being destroyed, and his bones were close to dissolving when everything flipped upside down. At that moment, when the barrier passed through him, his body was healed and filled with unending strength. At that moment, the tables had flipped. He became the Swamp King. So like the monster he had become. He pulled his foe towards his territory, ripping it apart until he found its magic stone, removing it from its chest without mercy. Unfortunately, as he did so, the Swamp King's body turned into dust, leaving nothing behind. A monster that borrowed power from somewhere had nothing of value on its body. It was a flimsy monster, like a soap bubble. Even if massive, once it popped, it left nothing behind. Only air. It wasn't a proficient fighter nor anything of the like. It was just a punching bag. A very satisfying one. Then, his job finished, Silver enjoyed a few extra seconds within the spring to heal before swimming upward, leading to that awkward situation. His clothes had all corroded, and his body hair had also yet to grow again. As for the hair on his head, wasn't it obvious? Silver knew exactly what was going on. Maybe it was his way to tease the girl for doubting him before. Or his way to tease Haruheim as he found her reactions cute. Either way, it was difficult to discern what went on inside his head. Maybe there was no reason at all. Men often did things without logic for no reason other than feeling. It was funny. In some way, relaxing in the spring naked felt divine. /slam/. Guho. Why are you naked, you pervert? Artemis exclaimed as she kicked Silver back onto the spring violently. /splash/. Silence/. Just like that, 1,000 years of suffering and sacrifices was ended by a very unordinary group of travelers who shouldn't be there. A group of people who seemingly loved to put their nose where they did not belong. Bera was definitely not writing that down. Or maybe that was exactly how she would describe them for centuries to come. Notes. Chapter 302, Commemoration of a Free Nation. /sha/// /splash// How long do you plan on staying there? Artemis asked as she sat at the edge of the spring, playing with the water as she let her feet soak. Just let me soak for 5 more minutes. You said that 20 minutes ago, though. It had been around half an hour since the Swamp King died, and the situation had calmed significantly. Following the awkward encounter from his lack of clothes, Silver quickly clothed himself with a towel before resuming his nightly swim. The feeling of swimming in the spring was simply divine. No wonder the Swamp King remained in it for hundreds of years. To some degree, Silver felt he was growing stronger just by swimming in it, and for good reason. His many hidden injuries were being healed, and even the scars he had on his skin were slowly peeling away as the divine power of the spring healed him back to his natural state. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that as long as he stood within it, he would live forever. Of course, not everyone had the patience or the time to relax. The first ones to leave were Uskari and Lidari. The death of the Swamp King left a bitter taste in their mouth. Because at the end of it all, they weren't even given the chance to redeem themselves, even at its final moments. They left the center of the forest with regret but also excitement, as today, they would finally be able to sleep soundly knowing that their land was now safe, and the children of the future could grow without fear. Meanwhile, Haruheim, Keed, and Momiji collapsed on the ground, too tired to stand after everything they went through. Yes, they technically just ran around, and Momiji did nothing at all, but the psychological impact of this little venture wasn't going to be lifted so easily. Under the bright stars and the quickly approaching light bugs, Haruheim and the two sat down at the edge of the spring, catching their breath as they watched their captain argue with the mysterious archer over his lack of conduct. /sha// Haruheim would often touch the water in the spring. It would sparkle whenever she touched it, filling her with a warm, fuzzy feeling. Right, an adventure was meant to be like that. Albeit she felt something was wrong. She would often gaze at them in the distance, feeling odd and even a little left out. Meanwhile, Talvi kneeled on the ground next to the spring, looking at her reflection as she still tried to process what had just transpired. Like Haruheim, she would often touch the spring water, smiling. Only to grimace as she saw Silver playing inside it. They were meant to drink that. Can you stop? But of course. She never voiced her worries. Not because she didn't want to but because she felt everyone deserved a little peace after all they've done. Mother. Memories passed by her eyes, but she let go of them in the end. Never forget. But she couldn't let them hold her back. It wasn't the perfect, and they lived ever after, kind of ending, but it was far beyond everything she could have ever imagined. After all, it was something not even her goddess believed possible. It was bittersweet. A few minutes later, crackle. After he enjoyed the spring and teased Artemis for what happened before, Silver began cleaning after the mess he had caused. By now, Talvi and the others had already returned, leaving him alone to watch the stars above. Artemis was the last to leave, likely to try and hide herself from the others. Oh well, it wasn't like he cared if rumors started going around. Not now. As he relaxed on the spring of life, Silver concluded many of his regrets. It was more of a psychological form of acceptance to his long-past mistakes, but it seemed that the spring did more than just heal one physically. It also seemed to affect their mentality. At the end of it all, as his hair swayed around on the water, he thought about his entire life, from start to finish, from one to the next, and the one after. When he finally finished his reflecting. Phew. This was tiresome. He said out loud as he let himself float around. Well. It didn't end like I wanted to, but I won't complain. It was decent enough. An immortal monster. A magic created from trial and error by mixing in dozens of bloodlines by a desperate goddess and her believers. I'll write this down eventually. He looked around. Many of the trees had been toppled, the stones surrounding the edges of the spring had all been flattened, and a dozen of his traps never triggered. Or were never given a chance to. I better disarm those before something happens. Silver's traps weren't really anything special. Some were purely mechanical, like weights to hold the monster down momentarily, while others were just a pit full of explosives. The all reliable. In the end, he didn't quite use any of them as the Swamp King's strength proved too dominant for any of them to even matter. They were mostly to test the waters anyway, as he set them up while he estimated the monster's strength. I never planned to damage it with those traps, but it doesn't matter. It's all good for me since now I can reuse those materials elsewhere. As for the rest, fixing this place shouldn't be too much of a bother. The problem is all of the trees we destroyed further down the swamp. How many hectares of forest did it destroy? The spring of life has brought many dying trees back to life, but it cannot piece back together a splintered tree. Maybe I should just leave things as they are. As a casualty of war. In due time, everything should regrow with the spring's overwhelming life force. At the very least, none of the ancient trees toppled. Beltane was the city of springs. Yet there were no springs. That was because the putrid swamp had covered everything. What Silver once thought to be an extension of the spring of life had been artificially created by the beast. Over centuries, the Swamp King terraformed the forest to make it more suitable for itself, but now that it was dead, the swamp naturally began to vanish, leaving behind dozens of natural springs and lakes amidst the ancient trees. The reason the trees looked the way they did was also because of the spring's overwhelming life force. It forced the trees to adapt in real time over centuries, changing their original appearance to the ones they saw now. If they take some time to clean up the place, Beltane could become a major tourist town. If they find a way to get the people through the Beol Mountains, it could be a spot for merchants to stop by. But the spring's power shouldn't be shared so easily. Even the diluted waters that flow from the spring hold immense power, and it would be too much to mindlessly share with others. But that's not something for me to worry or care about. In the worst possible scenario, I can just step in and claim this city for the Familia by allying with Bera. While Hestia and Bera don't do well together, they share some similarities like their love for the children, and I'm sure they would hold a compromise if there was a way to help them. Splash. Silver stopped drifting in the lake, swimming to the shore before jumping onto solid ground. That's enough swimming for today. Phew. I feel great, he said as he stretched his arms. No pain, no joints cracking, many of my scars have vanished, and my skin smooth. Above all, I'm extremely energetic. I feel as if I had the best sleep of my life. This is just too much, man. I'll grab a few gallons of these, just a small vial could save a person's life. Albeit true, to Silver, it was the perfect item for him to train. As if he didn't have enough of that already. Slash swoosh. Thud, slash. To finish everything off, Silver raised his hand, gently moving the ancient stone dome back to its original spot. It was a miracle it was still intact. Slash splash, slash. With that, the spring of life returned to its natural state, as it was 1,000 years ago. And it's all done. There's nothing else to do here. I guess I can say my trip to Beltane is officially over. It only lasted a little less than half a day. Although I feel like it lasted much longer. Silver scratched his chin as he looked at the spring, now full of buzzing light bugs flying above it. Well, just because it ended, it doesn't mean it's an eternal farewell. I'll visit often, after all, I'll need many more vials. If Hestia were here, she would exclaim this is a sacred place that shouldn't be tarnished before trying to bonk him. Of course, Silver would have just ignored her before jumping inside anyway. If Bera was here, how much would she curse him? He was essentially taking a shower inside the medicine her children needed to survive. Slash a few moments after the Swamp King's demise, slash. Blue and golden light shone upon the night sky, creating an ethereal scene above the forest's depths. From afar, many witnessed this scene with heavy gazes. Including two goddesses. They won. Bera said in disbelief as she watched the lights vanish in the distance. Aha. Did you see that, Bera? Just as I told you. They did it. Silver took down the monster. Hestia said on the side with a large smile as she squirmed. That's how you do it. You all worked really hard, everyone. Hestia was over the moon as she looked at the lights in the sky. If she could, she would jump with joy. Alas, she was tied to a pole on the corner after she kept trying to run away. Bera, on the other hand, only displayed a mildly shocked gaze, as if still trying to process what she just witnessed. Huh? Is that it for your reaction, Bera? No comment. Nothing. Hestia asked with an upset expression as she looked at Bera's face. Is that a question for me? Very well, I shall answer it. Bera's expression slowly changed to a light smile, and then. It feels like a waste, she said as she closed one of her eyes, teasing Hestia as she stuck her tongue out to provoke her. Huh. She smiled lightly, a dozen emotions contained with her lips and eyes as she looked back at Hestia. And for a moment, she closed her eyes, almost shedding a single tear as she chuckled. 1,000 years of excruciating pressure. All gone. If I knew things could be this fun. That such a thing could have been possible. Seeing them all gather and try to face this monster together. Bera and Hestia saw everything, from the trio's escapade to their encounter with Uskari, Silver's face-off against the Swamp King, and the eventual meet-up at the center of the forest. Even if not perfectly, she could see and feel their blessings move around in the dark, shining and glowing ever strong as their wills burned with desire. Then I would have spared no effort in stirring things up as I tried all sorts of things with them, she said with an honest and kind smile as she looked down at the torchlights in the faint drizzle. Yet, just as her smile came, it vanished, being replaced with a look of sorrow and sadness. For the children that already departed. I wished I had been there for them. That I had looked after them properly and not so far apart. Bera. Hestia said with puppy eyes as she grew emotional. That's why I feel like I've wasted these past few hundred years. But as she turned to look at Hestia, her face grew annoyed as she teased her again. And stop right there with your puppy eyes, I don't want to hear that faith in heroes thing both you and Artemis share. You're not going to poison me. Hestia smiled slightly as she closed her eyes. Anyhow, can you untie me? It's a little uncomfortable. That's how it's supposed to be, though. Yes. Then, please. Where are you going? To see if my children are all right and well. I won't stand if they're hurt. Bera replied as she turned to the side. Then let's go together, but please. Don't leave me like this. Is that an order? She teased again as she stood before a door leading outside of their room. Bera. Later, / On a scale from 1 to 10. 0. 0. Come on. What's your basis of justification? I don't like you. And that discounts 10 entire points. Who said you got a 10 to begin with? If we went with that analysis, you would go into the negatives. Bera replied with a scoff as she crossed her legs. That's harsh, I feel like I did a good job. At least deserving of an 8. If not enough, then give me an explanation so I may receive greater scores from future clients. Why should I? I would rather remain silent than curse someone else with your presence in the future. Besides, isn't that too much for how you handled things? Harsh. But on a counterpoint. That's a perfectly viable score for my performance. Silver said with a chuckle as he poured some wine for himself. Following the Swamp King's demise, Beltane began to change as everyone slowly learned of the fateful fall of their tyrant. Silver and company returned to the city at the mountainside to rest. Meanwhile, Uskari and Ladari resumed their duties, calming the populace down and retrieving the beast's carcass the Swamp King used to parasitize, using it to convince all of its downfall. Given the Swamp King in itself dropped nothing aside from its magic stone, it was the only way to convince everyone on short notice given they were in the middle of the night and it would be too dangerous to lead the people to the forest to look at the clean springs. Silver did not care for the giant snake's body given its terrific state, and he had no use for its skeleton either. So donating it to the city so they could remember this day for generations felt the right thing to do. For now, the citizens of Beltane had much to do if they wished to return to their old ways of living, to the time they all used to live on the tall trees of the swamp. In truth, when he first arrived at Beltane, Silver saw many old ruins built upon the giant tree trunks. Those were the original edifications the people of Beltane used before they were all forced outside to the mountains. The way things used to be until 100 or so years ago was that most of Beltane was located within the giant swamp trees with only a small part of the population living within the mountains so they could farm and raise cattle. But with the corruption of the swamp and the arrival of the Swamp King's awakening, many migrated to land, far from the swamp, to protect themselves, leaving only a few behind. Living above the swamp wasn't really that big of a deal. When the houses were built tens of meters above ground, even the horrid smell of decaying matter in the swamp washed away under the breeze. And now that the swamp had mostly been pulled back thanks to the Swamp King's death, quality of life within the trees would consequentially skyrocket. Which meant that for the people that remained, the price of real estate had just shot up. Not that it mattered. The people of Beltane would never take advantage of themselves like that. And in the end, it wasn't like they lacked the space. There were thousands of giant trees, and they would go nowhere. It was a new beginning. Phew. Then what about a reward? Do I gain anything from this achievement? Aside from this date? Silver asked as he raised an eyebrow at Bera. I thought you did all of this because you felt like it and didn't want any recognition nor help, which, by consequence, indicates you weren't here for a reward either. Is that correct? Bera asked as she grew a little serious. She also scoffed inside, "Date, look at him go." Silver rested his head on his chair, looking at the sky as he asked. "Sigh, you're still holding on to that." Bera chuckled, looking at her people laughing and dancing on the streets as some came and went in a hurry. With the faintest of smiles, she said, "Gods can hold on to grudges for centuries." Even now, almost an hour after its death, people still ran around excitedly, wanting to share and discuss the news with anybody. The soldiers were also just as busy, drinking and enjoying their time with their friends and family. Tonight was the first of many. The first day of Belthane's independence. You're all the same. Clink. With those words, Silver finished his food. Then, I imagine we can end this little date of ours, can we? Bera asked with some slight annoyance as she looked at Silver wipe his lips. Meanwhile, Silver patted his belly with a light smile as he replied. That's rough. I at least enjoyed the food. It was delicious. Men are satisfied as long as their bellies are full, such simple creatures. Although he did not reply, he still smiled. Well. My partner could make do with some extra words, but I don't mind the view. He added with a chuckle as he looked at the moon in the sky. PFFF. All right, you're so shameless that I'll give it to you. It's a new experience, given everyone is so stiff around here. Having a child like that around doesn't sound so bad. No wonder they changed that much. The mortal world. It is full of interesting individuals. Moments before, after Silver's return, Bera called him for a private chat in a restaurant nearby. Although she never said it outright, it was evident this was her way of saying thanks. And maybe also as a way to punish him, given the way Hestia looked at him as she saw him walk away. Bera called it a date, but in truth, they barely talked at all. But he knew that with this, Bera was now in possession of a gun full of bullets, ready to shoot them all if needed. Well. At least let me ask you a question before we depart. If you speak or not, it doesn't matter, does it? Here it goes anyway. You know, I've been thinking. Everyone's cheering, and you're here with that serious expression, so I wanted to ask since I'm quite the dense guy. Are you happy? He asked as he got up from his seat. Bera turned to look at the people cheering and parting at the streets, their smiles wide as they danced around the place. She also saw the two Renards and the Hum Bunny being flung around the place as they were given plates upon plates of free food and items, their hands so full they could barely stand. Is this happiness? With that question on her mind, she turned to the side, ready to answer. Huh. That brat. But her partner had left. The only thing left was a small note on the table, reading. Thanks for the free food, 7.9/10-. You can keep this. Don't lose it. With love, your favorite adventurer. Melio's Silver. Next to the note, a small magic stone about the size of her fist remained. Thousands of sparks of light could be seen under the translucent stone. Sigh. He sure is as annoying as his goddess. Favorite adventurer, huh? To begin with, it's not like I know many. All the others must all be in heaven by now. I did spend quite some time here, now that I think about it. With a slightly devious smile and some mysterious thoughts, Bera left the room, her children waiting for her below. It would be a long night for the people of Beltane. Notes. This is the de facto end of the arc. It's likely going to be the biggest out of every small arc of Silver's time outside of Orario. I have a few places in line for him to visit before we return and begin the next arc, which will likely have him level up to 5 together with a few extra time skips. After that, I guess we'll slowly move on to the start of canon. How strong will Silver grow till then? Well, if he keeps his growth speed, I wouldn't be surprised if he became level 7 or higher by the time Bell was supposed to arrive at Orario. But we'll see about that. Silver will begin growing strong and so will many other characters around him so he can have some supporting cast for the future. Thank you for reading, peace. Chapter 303, Towards a New Adventure. Hey, I'm back. I still have a few chapters to post, so maybe I'll post them all first before thinking what to do. I'm not thinking about dropping this at all, but recently, I've begun rewriting another novel, and it's been really fun. It helps me better visualize the story while also fleshing out the mistakes I made in the past. But most importantly, it's necessary for me to recover the will to continue this. It's hard to put into words. I love this work, a lot really, but after beginning the rewriting project and seeing how well it's going, I just can't look at this one the same. I reread the entire novel, this one, and I can't say I'm pleased with the way some things went, and I have many ideas on how to solve it. Either way, I'm uncertain what to do. It's up to you all, really. Thank you for reading. I edited this chapter a little, but it's quite old. This one and a few others are about 4 to 6 months old. Damn. Enjoy and give me your opinions. Should I finish this arc and think about this after, or should I stop here and begin rewriting? I could try doing both at once. Rewriting is far easier than writing from scratch, even if I end up doubling a chapter. That's about it. Peace. Later that night, shum. At the eve of the festivities, Silver stepped out of a portal, approaching Hestia as she crossed her arms, saying, "You're back. It was fun. I hope they could have stayed longer. You know how it is. We've already taken a lot of their time. Tomorrow will be a busy day, and they'll need the energy from a good night's sleep." Silver adjusted his collar as he walked past her, placing a small decorative leaf crown on her head. As promised, after enjoying the commemoration for a few hours, Silver led Haruheim, Keed, and Momiji back home, quickly returning before he was noticed by his familia. Although the party was greatly entertaining, they had to return before everyone back home got worried. After all, it would be strange if a trio of girls left home at 2 p.m. only to not return even after midnight. Especially after what happened last time with the Eshma and Soma familias. We should do something like this again. Spending time with everyone is always nice. She added with a smile as she remembered the beach party they had not so long ago. Sure, but next time, let's leave it to somewhere near Orario. My head's a bit light from moving everywhere. Silver touched his head as he said that, sighing as he walked past Hestia. It's a promise then. Then. Are we leaving? Artemis asked on the side as she cleaned her bow. Once Silver left with the others, Artemis stopped hiding herself, joining Hestia in the inn to discuss everything that happened. Silver felt a little bad since not so long ago, they were all enjoying the festivities while Artemis had to enjoy the party mostly alone, so he said. Not yet. Let's enjoy the night a little longer before leaving. Ah, did you finally feel pity for little me? Artemis asked with a smug smile as Silver touched his neck awkwardly. Chuckle. Artemis chuckled, grabbing his nose before walking past him, sitting on the window as she looked at the people laughing and cheering on the streets. Her smile was thin, but it was a genuine one. She was proud and happy about what they had accomplished. In the end, justice had prevailed. At the same time, looking at the streets as well, Hestia turned to Silver with a tired gaze. Can't we stay for the night? We can, but I would prefer if we moved already. Are you embarrassed about what happened and now you can't face Bera? Artemis asked as she touched her chin. A little. Silver replied as he tapped his foot on the ground. You shouldn't be. But if that's not enough, do it for little old me, Kay. Artemis jumped from the window, going for the door. If you're feeling bad for leaving me alone, then let's stay for the night and enjoy it for once. A moment like this. There won't be another one in their history. We should see it through to the end. Creak. With those words, Artemis walked through the door, leaving Hestia and Silver alone. Silver looked at her, but Hestia shrugged with a small smile, saying, "It's just good old Artemis." Sigh. Fine. But if we keep stopping at every village like this, I'm afraid we're going to stay a few extra weeks on the road. It's a special occasion, so stop nitpicking, and let's have some fun. Hestia said out loud as she pulled Silver's hand. Silver didn't hesitate to follow her, but his smile sure took its sweet time to appear. Soon enough, he pushed his thoughts to the back of his mind. Regardless of his responsibilities, he had the right to have some fun. Simple, pure fun. Party. Following the smiling goddess, Silver joined the fray on the streets, drinking and partying. He let the food and alcohol work on his system, not purifying them in the slightest. It didn't take long for him to let go of his restraints and enjoy the night. Together with the natives, Bera, Talvi, and the others, they all danced and partied until their feet hurt. Well. Bera barely moved at all, but her presence with her snarky remarks was good enough for everyone, especially when they were all half drunk. Thanks to Talvi, Uskari, and Ladari soon did something other than watch and drink in the corner. Regardless of how they met and the bad blood between them, right now, they just enjoyed this holy day. Until Silver got a little too drunk and pulled Bera to a folk dance. Well, that's a story for another time. But thankfully, everything ended well, or so Silver thought once he cleaned his system a bit. Soon enough, they all hit the bed, moonlight crashing through the windows. Sometime late at night, snooer, zzzzzzzzz. Shilva. You can't eat my food. Back at the inn, as expected, Hestia slept disorderly, mumbling something in her sleep as she shoved one of her feet over Silver's face. Despite his attempts to get a separate room for him to sleep in, Hestia and Artemis protested, and eventually, they all slept in the same bed. Tic-tac, Meanwhile, under the echoes of a grandfather clock, Silver looked at the ceiling, thinking about everything that happened today. Maybe it was the vitality of the spring or the adrenaline that somehow escaped his senses, but he just couldn't close his eyes and sleep. By now, although he still felt off due to the alcohol, thanks to his high tolerance, he was still mostly sober. Although his thoughts were still somewhat clouded. What's next? Further north. There's the end of the Beol Mountains. Beyond that would be Rakia, the damned country ruled by Ares, the god hellbent on invading Orario. Further north, we would eventually hit the continent's end after passing through Rakia's capital, although there's still much to explore. Everything between those major countries is wilderness and slightly explored land, with some smaller countries and cities along the roads. Orario is located at the western corner of the continent, so going further north from that, we're just covering a tiny portion of all the land. There are many exciting places to visit. For example, if we were to go further west from here, we would reach the Dazara region. I heard there are some nice seafood there. It's also one of the places where the Poseidon Familia is said to be active, at least partially, but I imagine they're everywhere where along the seashore, moving along with the current, just like the school district. The Dazara region was a portion of land northwest of Orario where maritime nations are located, but like most of the continent, it's not exactly noteworthy. Yet, like Beltane, who knew what ancient secrets it may contain? Or lack. Since not everywhere can be magical. There's also the Sea of Medulla. And Olympia. The Sea of Medulla was a massive river crossing straight through the continent, very much like the Great River of the Forests that links the Elven forests to the sea. It was a river so massive in size that some scholars considered it a sea instead, but it's popularly known as a river. It's a rather well-used route for ships to sail from the center of the continent to the sea and eventually into other nations. However, it's mostly known for the nation, which is located at its very center. Olympia, the city where the Flame of Haven resided. A superpower that withstood the chaotic era of the past before the age of the gods and even the age of heroes, a myth amidst myths in the sea of legends of the mortal world. Few know its location, and even fewer are allowed into its premises as it's rumored that the nation in itself is protected by the divine flame and only those pure of heart and intent are allowed inside. Olympia. Since Hestia was in charge of the holy flame, it's not a stretch to go there and see how things are doing, right? Above all, I want to see if what's written in Zeus' books is true. The legend of one of the first heroes, Ephimedius. The chosen of Prometheus. According to it, the Flame of Haven granted Ephimedius incredible power, enough to stand undefeated as he mastered it, even though, in the end, he lost to the Behemoth and the Leviathan. Above the many things it granted him, immortality seemed to be one of those perks. I would like to see if after all these years, if he's still alive, since at the end of his story, Epimetheus was only described as a saddened and depressed hero who could not have his fallen companions recognized by their bravery as he saw their valor and sacrifices be scorned and forgotten, overshadowed by his failures. But, given my schedule, I'll have to leave exploring it for later, as it's too much of an endeavor. I don't plan on cruising the entire continent, that would take forever. An entire lifetime even. Still, I can pass by on the way back. And then I'll return home again and go off to Orario. Although I'm slowly getting the urge to explore the world a bit further. The land of the Amazons has struck my interest. Definitely not for any bad reason. Still awake? Artemis asked on the side as she hugged her pillow. It's hard to sleep when I'm half drunk, with a feet up my nose, and little space to move around in. Silver retorted as he looked at the ceiling. Kick. At the same time, Hestia kicked his face lightly, causing him to grunt lightly as he exhaled. Oh, come on, you know she's only like that with you. Artemis chuckled as she pinched his hand. I'm honored. And for a long time, happy to oblige. Until she kicked me a little too low once. He replied with a scoff as he pushed her feet away. Ever since then, I either move away from her or restrain her in some capacity. But this time I wasn't given the chance to do either. Once I tried tickling her feet to show my disapproval. She ended up kicking my face pretty hard. Not that it hurt, though. See cough. Artemis coughed as she tried to change the subject. Anyhow. What's keeping you from sleeping? I don't know. I think I overate. Silver said as he tapped his stomach. I'm afraid I won't be able to keep it in. Oh no, please no. Have mercy. Artemis said in fear and some weak laughs as she tried to move away, only to realize she was already at the bed's end. You chose this yourself. Now face the consequences. I've been holding this one for a while. Burp. HAAA. Much better. Silver said as he closed his eyes, ready to sleep. That's it. What? You wanted it to come from the other end? Very well. No. After a weak tug of war as the two tried not to awaken the still snoring Hestia, Artemis gave up as she laid her head on her pillow, sighing out loud. Huff. All right, you win. Just make it quick. I'm not in the mood anymore. Although I'm quite tired now. Maybe some distractions were everything I needed. Glad to help. She said with a thin smile as she held his hand under the blanket. You know. Thank you. For what? For making this possible. I just took down a monster. It was my job, nothing else. Can't you be a bit more honest? I know you did it because. All right, no need to repeat what I said before. I'm not that stubborn, I give up. Silver said with an embarrassed scoff as he closed his eyes. Chuckle. Thank you, really. My so, very rude and cute mortal dot. She said with a smile as she approached him, giving him a light peck on the lips. Silver looked at her eyes and hair as they fell around him. The moonlight behind him, such a beautiful scene. Made him sleepy. Humph. I'll do it again, but next time. Silver touched her forehead. I don't want to see you distressed. Whatever's on your mind, you tell me. And I'll have it done. Smile, Yes. Snore, kick, To ruin the mood, Hestia shoved her feet onto Silver's nostrils, causing Artemis to chuckle once more. With the romantic mood over, the duo went back to sleep, a new day of adventures awaiting them in the horizon. Flash. Outside, rain drizzled faintly on the streets, lightning flashing in the sky as the torchlights on the streets were slowly extinguished, cladding much of the city in a dark veil. Many remained partying on the streets for they were to witness what their ancestors could not. For as high as their happiness was, so was their pride. But for Silver, those lights only served to interfere with his sleep. To not break the mood, he moved his hands, and the curtains moved to block the window. And so, the sky cleared, the moon fell, and the sun rose. A new day for Beltane. Several hours later, Just leave already. Bera said with a scoff as she looked down at Hestia. Huh. What did you say? How can you keep acting like that after everything that happened? Was I supposed to act in any other way? I'm sorry for breaking your expectations, but I don't give others lip service. Lip service? Can't you just be nice for once? And I am. Grr. Night passed, and the morning came, and this time, the blue sky reigned free of clouds, letting the sun shed its golden rays down on the earth below. On this beautiful day, a group of individuals had gathered atop one of the nearby mountaintops. I've said this a few times already, yet here you remain. Are you deaf, mayhaps? You. Pull. Calm down, she doesn't really mean that. Silver said on the side as he pulled his goddess back. Are you suggesting I'm lying right now? I may be many things, but a liar I'm not. Bera added with a teasing expression as she looked at Hestia. I can't take this anymore. If you want to resume what we ended back in heaven, then just say so. Hestia exclaimed as she moved her feet around, but unfortunately, Silver held her up so she could do nothing but swing her feet around in vain. Sigh. Ha. Put me down, Silver. Why does she always teases her like this? Silver looked at Bera, but she only smiled teasingly in reply. After calming Hestia down, Silver resumed with his goodbyes, getting ready to leave. Well. I know we started a bit off, but allow me to introduce myself again. I'm Melios Silver, captain of the Hestia Familia. He said with a small nod as he looked at Bera and her children. Beside her, Talvi, Ladari, and Uskari remained, each with their usual expressions. Ladari had the same expression as always, but both Uskari and Talvi seemed much happier than before, especially Talvi as she seemed to have grown close to Haruheim and the others before they departed. It seemed they had much in common. Nonetheless, they would have to catch up with their stories another time. A displeasure to make you acquainted. Bera said with a wide smile as she looked at Silver. Be Bera-sama, I'm certain that's not right. Talvi replied as a bead of sweat fell from her forehead. Is it? I guess you're right. Disgusted would be more appropriate. Do you hate me that much? Silver asked as he looked at Bera, awkwardly stroking the back of his neck as he coughed. Me. The very goddess in charge of the land you defiled, its inhabitants you brutalized, and its holy grounds defiled. Can you see the smoke in the distance? From the ancient trees you've burned and toppled. How could I? On the contrary, I'm thrilled to be in your presence. That was sarcasm. She added as her expression grew serious. Aye. Sigh. This time, in a battle of words, Silver was so utterly tired by her antics that he gave up, throwing in the towel instead of continuing. You have the right to hate me, I'm not a good guy anyway. he said as he shook his head before turning to Ladari and the others. So you win, just another one on the long list of friends I have. Well, I guess it's now all over, huh? Hopefully, this time, you guys keep a close watch on that fountain. I wouldn't want anything bad falling into it again anytime soon. On that note, we agree. Uskari said as he nodded, just as tired as Silver, although for another reason entirely. 2 dark circles hung around his eyelids. While Silver was tired of this goddess shamelessness, Uskari was mostly exhausted because he stood up all night handling the aftermath of the Swamp King's demise. If anything do happen, you know who to call. You. The one. I know, no need to bash me again with words. Silver said out loud as he interrupted Bera. How odd, I was about to praise you though. Hashtag. The fact she said that meant she was really about to praise him, as Bera wasn't one to lie. Silver could feel his skull crack as his forehead tensed. Huff. Anyhow. I imagine things will get quite ordinary following today. He added as he took something from his chest pocket. It was a large envelope with a seal on it. If you two ever feel bored about life here in the countryside, you know where to go. The Swamp King was a strong monster, but by far it wasn't the strongest one I have ever faced. It was tricky, for sure, but its immortality wasn't that big of a deal, all things considered. If you two wish to see what this world truly has to offer, then come find me at Orario. I thought you were bold before but I was wrong. This tops it all off. Bera said in an annoyed tone as she frowned at Silver. Hey, guess this ticked her off. Poaching my children right in front of me, do you have no shame? Is that what you teach your children, Hestia? The art of shamelessness. The what now? Before Hestia threw a fit again, Silver interjected. I'm not poaching anyone and you know full well that's the case, so stop throwing a fuss. Gee, boring. You don't need to leave a familia to get your status updated, but even if you leave, you can return shortly after, if you desire. Consider it an invitation more than anything. You can still come to visit if you don't wish to join, don't treat it as a mandatory thing. Orario has much to offer aside from the dungeon, and so does the Hestia familia. Yeah. Do we? Hestia whispered as she looked at Artemis. Artemis didn't know what to say, so she smiled faintly. Why? Uskari asked as he grabbed the envelope. Why you ask? Well, consider it my selfish wish. That it's not my desire to see warriors of your caliber retire just yet. And who said I'll be retiring? Uskari asked as he crossed his arms. Please, who are you trying to deceive here? Without the Swamp King, even if another 500 years pass and you somehow live through it, you'll at most see one other monster on its level if any. Creatures like that are a rarity outside of the dungeon, and with it, high-grade Excelia needed for a level up. Maybe with the remainder of life you two have left, you can slowly build up the necessary foundation to level up, growing step by step over decades by challenging the weak monsters around the city and the mountains. And by no means is that a bad life, and if it's the one you wish to pursue, please do so. This life is yours to live. After all, your lifelong enemy is dead, maybe you two should consider hanging your blades and having a kid or two to continue your legacy. I'm sure you both have no lack of pursuers around here. Cough. Talvi coughed loudly as she held a laugh on the side. Talvi, why are you laughing? Uskari asked as his expression went dark. She has every right to laugh. Please, Uskari, when was the last time you got laid? 50 years ago. Bera asked as she grew pensive. What? It hasn't been that. How do you even know that? Chuckle. From the looks of it things are rough. Silver added as he shook his head. Don't try to reinforce her words. And if you're going to talk about that, then why aren't we talking about him? He asked as he pointed at Ladari. Ladari said nothing at all. On the contrary, he was annoyed at all the noise. But today, he tolerated the sounds. Silver looked at Hestia and Artemis before nodding weakly. Everything there was to be said had already been uttered. It was time to depart. Shush. With a flick of his hand, wind gathered, and dust converged like a small typhoon. Sha. As the dust storm cleared, a floating boat emerged from nowhere. And while everyone else was baffled at the scene, Artemis and Hestia were quick to board it without much complaint. Anyhow. Thank you for having us, despite everything that happened. When did that ever happen again? Bera asked as she continued to annoy him. She had a smile on her face as she did so. It was evident that despite everything, she was in a good and positive mood. More than anything, the suffering of her children had ended. How couldn't she be happy? I say we let bygones be bygones and look at the path ahead, How about that? Won't you just do whatever you like anyway? Till when you're going to hold onto my feet for that? Gods can hold grudges for a very long time, you know. Whatever. Float. Silver stepped onto the boat, moving it slightly upwards, essentially taking off into the sky. But before leaving, he said one last thing. I'll be back soon enough. I still have much to discuss with you regarding your research. Silver said with a smile as he looked at Bera. And why would I entertain you? She asked with a calm expression as she raised her head. Is that a question for me? Very well, I shall answer it. Because I'm your favorite adventurer, aren't I? We can talk more later, but do consider visiting Orario. Soon enough, the winter festival will begin, and I heard it quite the sight. Maybe once you visit, we can pass by the dungeon. How about that? Take care. Shaw. With a burst of wind, the floating boat took off to the horizon, leaving Beltane and the adventure within behind. A new adventure on the horizon, the trio of mortal and goddesses went after yet another challenge. Notes. Chapter 304, Memories from Time Forgotten. Several days later, Shaw. Above the mountains and rivers, Silver led Hestia and Artemis through the lands as they went after whatever destination he had in mind. Neither of them knew where he wished to go, but the many sights the world had to offer entertained them enough to make their doubts disappear. The Beol Mountains alone gave them many exotic sights. From the very first village, they met to the next one, Beltane of the swamp of ancient trees and more. Giant waterfalls feeding massive lakes, tall mountain peaks that vanished within clouds of mist, forests so dense sunlight didn't pass through, and many other peculiar sights adorned these lands. Beyond the Beol Mountains, the continent awaited them. From village to village, city to city, adventure to adventure. From the Beol Mountains to the elven forests and beyond. However, as the days came to pass, both Hestia and Artemis grew wary. Not because they were tired from their travels, but because they began to miss and worry about the children they left behind. Silver knew this would eventually happen, as no matter how willing those two goddesses were to go on a trip, their kindness and love for their familiars were equal to their love towards him, if not greater. It was the difference between a caring mother's love for her partner and children. The most he could do to sate their curiosity was to reassure them of their safety, since he knew full well that if he were to return with them now, they would likely not leave Orario afterward. Like a mother sending their child to school for the first time, letting them go was the hardest part, but they had to, despite everything they felt. As they did time and time again whenever they sent them to the dungeon, not knowing if they would return. Of course, Silver had no desire to force them to do anything, and if he felt they were beginning to grow distressed, he wouldn't hesitate to bring them back and resume his travels another time. Even if he had to do them alone. He was just as worried as them, and there was also the matter of them recognizing their goddess disappearance, so Silver was also in a hurry as not to cause too much of a disturbance in the familia. This, in the end, was all due to his selfish desires. For abandoning his responsibility as their captain to go on an adventure far, far away. At least back in Orario he could return whenever he saw fit, but here, even if he spent multiple hours transporting himself throughout the land, drinking potions and recovering, he may not return even as the next sunrise rose. Some may call that fast, but that was him pushing his limits to the point he may collapse due to mind zero. But aside from these momentary feelings, their journey went smoothly. With Silver's abilities, they traveled much faster than even some flying monsters from morning to dawn, stopping only to rest at interesting sites and settlements. Having lunch atop a mountain thousands of meters above ground to seeing the coronation of a small nation far, far away from Orario, those were the kinds of scenes they saw along the way. Forests of pink trees, grasslands of golden weeds, ancient battlegrounds hidden underneath millennia of erosion. In this beautiful world, the signs of ancient monsters were everywhere. Mountains torn apart, holes so deep sunlight couldn't reach. Monsters far beyond anyone had ever seen once prowled these lands, and Silver wondered if they were still out there, underneath their very feet. Did the dungeon reach this far? If he dug down, breaching space like Daedalus once did as he sought the secrets of the dungeon, would he reach the dungeon? And if he did, what sort of hell would await him, thousands of feet underneath the ground? Those thoughts would often fill his mind whenever they visited the many unique cultures along the coast. From eating the many kinds of foods to seeing the many kinds of individuals these places held. It was all quite eye-opening. Types of beastmen he had never seen, languages he couldn't recognize, clothing and architecture in a fine line between elegant and bizarre. Gods of foreign lands, all so far from Orario, the people of these lands saw the city as nothing but a legend. Life was so much different in these parts, thousands upon thousands of kilometers from the dungeon. In here, even the strongest knight was at most level 2. Those who went beyond were considered masters of utmost respect, enough for even kings and nobles to recognize. Be it in the past or now, maybe even more now, power was the number one trait that garnered respect. For it was what led people to gather and resist the erosion of the dungeon. Such was the world far beyond Orario's borders. As rare as they were, Silver saw monsters beyond level 3 or 4 prowling the wilds, dispatching them in his boredom, sometimes because they were on his way, other times because he decided to act like a traveling hero and help those in need. From villages plagued by lizardmen to kingdoms attacked by wyverns, Silver even dispatched ancient monsters not seen in the dungeon anymore, such as the Iceman, a primate monster that lived in the frigid mountains. He'd often write down in a notebook whenever he met such an unusual creature, interested in consulting with others regarding their origins. He'd ask his goddess if he could, but Hestia was as clueless about the world as she was knowledgeable about the economy. Either way, to the people living in these lands, the sight of one such primate would spell their doom, given its power neared that of a level 5 adventurer. But to him, Silver saw the beast as a decent warm-up in the cold mountains. Sometimes, as he returned with the spoils of his victories and ventures, there were moments their cries of ovation and happiness for his actions were such he feared their descendants would carve statues in his name in the future. Yet, as he awkwardly tried to play it cool, both Hestia and Artemis fueled the flames of their awe, helping those affected by their nightmares with their divine aura. Slowly, the tale of the goddesses and their night traveling the land spread, although by the time anything conclusive began to circulate, years had already gone to pass. But that's a story for another time. Around 2 weeks after Silver left Orario, as September reached its end, so did Silver's adventure. Swoosh, This place. Did I finally arrive? Flying through the wild mountains, the wind brushing past his hair, Silver eventually spotted a massive structure in the distance. Hidden at the bottom of a valley within the mountains was a long-abandoned city of alien architecture built within the center of a purplish lake. Blue and purple trees covered the entire region's expanse, breathing life into this mystical land. Not in a poisonous way like the corrupted spring, but in a beautiful, awe-inducing way. Magical particles could be felt everywhere, even for those without affinity, sometimes causing the air to glister as they pierced through the clouds. A land of mystery and ancient tales. We're here. Silver turned around to look at the sleeping Artemis and Hestia, lightly shaking them awake. Already. Hestia was the first to react, stretching her arms as she lazily laid her head on the side of the boat, looking down on the world as her vision turned clear. Where is this place? She tilted her head to look at the ruins underneath them, trying to figure out what this place was. But she couldn't quite piece together what she was seeing. She turned to see if Artemis had awakened, only to see her in a trance. Artemis looked at everything with a silent gaze. Melancholy in her eyes as she looked at the surroundings. Deep down, she barely contained her surprise. Seeing this, Hestia gave the place a second look, noticing the ruins, she scratched her chin, the answer on the tip of her tongue as she narrowed her eyes. This place seems familiar. Actually, it looks like my temple. Artemis replied as she closed her eyes. Hestia's expression went down a little as she realized where they were. Everything had fallen in place, 1,000 thoughts, dozens of conversations all went by her head in the blink of an eye. But the question remained, why? A question she already knew the answer to. Pinch. She pinched Silver's side, trying to punish him for doing such a stupid thing. But as always, he shrugged it off, steering the boat closer to the ancient ruins. Ouch. I'll land, hold tight. It won't take too long anyway. He said with a light chuckle as he lowered the boat inside the city. To enter the city, one had to cross a long bridge leading to the lake center, but they didn't need that, did they? The enormous stone bridge stood tall high above the lake, connecting the mountains to the island, an ancient monument, proof of their ancestors' incredible craftsmanship. As Artemis said, this was her temple. In the ancient past, she would proudly look down from her throne in heaven as her disciples lived gleefully carrying out their duties. Very much akin to how Bera lived. Not many gods were like her. Like the Olympians, giving such attention to mortals. And even then, Artemis rarely did so as well. Thus, long before the age of the gods, it was left abandoned. Not because of wars, not because of conflict, and not because of monsters. Not directly, at the very least. The temple fell to the curse of time, isolation, and a lack of those to carry on its duties. As a goddess of chastity, one would imagine the kind of people overlooking her temple would be only composed of fair maidens. But despite Artemis being a goddess of chastity, this did not mean she prohibited the act. No, there could be no such thing. Humans and the many other kinds needed to pass on their line, and the last thing she wanted, as a goddess deeply attuned with nature, was to prevent them from moving on. But as monsters rampaged, cities fell, countries turned to ash, and people began living in complete isolation. A place like this, isolated from the world, was eventually lost to time. One day, the last keepers of this land vanished, either by their own feet, time, or the very thing they swore to protect. From a certain angle, it was best this way. As whatever secrets and curses this place was meant to safely keep, was forgotten and hidden from all who would misuse it. Until, that is, A faint rumor fell on the attentive ears of an ambitious mortal, eager to challenge the past and honor his beloved, but above all, to prevent a disastrous future. Like the heroes of old, a mortal had come to brave what had been cast aside. But was this truly the correct thing to do? The time has come to take this out of my to-do list. I'll prevent any mishaps from happening in my time. Maybe it's too soon. But I killed an immortal creature before. Let's see what this one has to offer. Better not say this out loud. Silver turned to a massive tower in the distance, his vision sharpening as he prepared for what was about to come. Sealed deep down under the city was a creature of immense might, such was its power that even the ancient great spirits of the past saw themselves unable to deal with it. Instead, they sealed it, and above it, a temple was erected to prevent its resurgence, while also researching ways to take it down for good. This was how the great Elso's temple came to be. Its legend held by a single goddess and the spirits who lived to tell the tale. A story most gods wouldn't remember unless given some time to recollect. 4 centuries. For thousands of years, they tried to bring an end to this foul entity. But like all things, time took them out first. That is the great irony of mortality. The great beast of the ancient times, a creature with the potential to devour the whole world, is now sealed here. Antares. Silver mumbled to himself as he landed the boat atop a tower. No. I didn't even say anything. Artemis crossed her arms, unwilling to leave the boat as she stepped before him. You didn't, but I know what you want to do. And I'm not letting you, not this time. Hestia's eyes spiraled as she grew confused. What's going on? But like many times, she was ignored as Silver replied. I have to. No, you don't. We can just turn around and look at me and say that again. Silver. Hestia held Silver's arm, tugging lightly at it as she questioned his sudden change in tone. Let's go down first and talk. I need to explain what's going on to her before she bites through my arm. Silver said with a chuckle as he looked at Hestia as she clung to his arm. Very well. Artemis' fear did not come from nowhere. Long ago, a goddess took pity on the mortals' constant struggles for survival and directly intervened to help them so their pain could end. But inadvertently, she only ended up deepening their despair and, at the same time, dooming generations after to a curse only their descendants would unluckily be ended by. This was the curse of divinity. In the endless river of time, whenever a god attempted to intervene in such a manner, more often than not, led to greater chaos they choose to ignore for the sake of a momentary solution. This was the tragic tale of Prometheus, the goddess who gave mortals the eternal flame, choosing a hero to carry on the torch so the great monsters of the past could be slain. The flame ignited hope as the hero, Epimetheus, cleansed the mortal coil of the ancient disasters until it came for him to challenge the great beasts. Epimetheus trained, gathered the greatest knights and champions of the past, and marched against uncountable monsters. Victory, after many sacrifices, the world became a little more peaceful. So Epimetheus took it upon himself to finish what many failed before. Throughout time, the dungeon, in all its anger to the divine, created multiple great beasts to ravage the world, several of which were slain by the chosen children of the gods, the spirits, and their contractors, the first of the many who'd be known as heroes. Amidst those, a few lived on, far too powerful to be taken down by their false divinity. Behemoth, the moving mountain. Leviathan, the emperor of the seas. And Antares, his title now lost to time. The hero challenged them all. And failed each time. Eventually, his glory was forgotten, and the flame sealed away. For the beasts, they each took a small corner of the land, nesting for centuries, waiting for their challengers to arrive. Maybe it was divine intervention or the work of forgotten heroes, but if not for that, the world would have been a wasteland by now. Amidst those, not long after it appeared, Antares was barely sealed away by the great spirits of old. And eventually, all of its destruction was forgotten, overshadowed by its brothers as they ravaged the world above. Now, a piece of heaven had been laid bare in the mortal plane, corrupted by mortality, without purpose, without reason. This was the greatest sin of them all. The compassion of the gods. The greatest poison for a mortal. But was the goddess to blame? Or were the mortals to blame for their lack of ability? For having disappointed the divine? No one could answer it, as in the end, Prometheus never blamed anyone but herself. Her eternal vow to make up for her mistakes still carries on in her eternal life. All the souls lost to her mistakes have a place in her mind for all eternity. Silver knew that in the face of such a monster, even Artemis would lose faith in him. This was, after all, a beast he feared Aurario wasn't ready to face. But he didn't come without a plan. 2 things were going in his favor. Right now, Antares is as weak as it'll even be. Sealed for millennia, the power within its stone is dimming. Were it not for its seal being undone in the near future, it would have died of natural causes. Although the world differs from the little I remember, either from my presence or something else, it doesn't mean I can keep moving while ignoring its existence. If fate exists in this world, I have to prevent Artemis being realized. At any cost. Antares is only growing stronger, and even if I can outgrow it and form a team. This isn't the kind of beast where something like that would make a difference. I can see Haruheim and a few others being useful. But I want to solve this myself. My arrogance will be my downfall one day. Not today, though. This challenge will push me further. A necessary step to challenge the greatest of them all. If I falter before this difference in power, then I'll never succeed. And my abilities don't prove sufficient. I have something at my disposal to help me in the situation it does prove. Overwhelming. I can also update my status again if necessary. Right now, I'm about as strong as a level 6 adventurer, albeit still weaker than, let's say, Gareth when he leveled up years ago. Still, my strength won't matter in this fight. My plasmids shouldn't matter either. Each of the great beasts has a unique ability that makes them what they are. They can be seen as experiments of the dungeon or its hatred incarnate. Antares' unique power is one that renders anything thrown at it useless. Unless a beast like Zald or the high levels of the Zeus and Hera Familia were here, I doubt it could be defeated in a straight manner. To defeat it, I need something beyond the confines of the dungeon. Something divine. Or to be creative. And I think I'm pretty good at that. As long as I can fight it, I can kill it. Besides, it's a monster, and its biggest weakness is the giant crystal without its body. It'll definitely protect it, but there is always a way. But first, I'll have to convince her. Or who knows? Maybe she'll convince me to cast this venture aside. A few moments later, After they found a way to descend the tower, Hestia, Silver, and Artemis made their way to the abandoned streets of Elsos. Giant, mushroom-shaped trees were everywhere, digging and eating through the ancient structures as they covered the entire land in a faint shadow. Towers had toppled, some buildings were barely husks of their former selves. Purple leaves were everywhere, casting the ruins in an ephemeral, almost alien-like gleam. The ancient world. A tiny speck of it, at least. How utterly fascinating. But I'm not here as a historian. With what I'm about to do, I'm afraid I'll give them a hard time. I don't know how much of this place will even remain once I'm done here. Aside from that, there's magic everywhere, I can feel it. It's biting onto my skin. Like a web, it spreads in an orderly manner under the ground, channeling the entire energy of these mountains down to a single place. This much energy. How should I even quantify it? Silver thought of Riveria and her magic. Level 8. No, much, much higher. Even Riveria would drown if the entire magic in this land exploded. Why am I even comparing it to her? All of Aurario would vanish if that were to happen. Stop. After they walked around for a few minutes, Hestia had enough as she turned around with her arms crossed, stomping her feet before pointing at Silver. All right. Enough mystery. What's going on here? I'm also curious, given I was left out of this discussion. So out with it. These are the Elsos ruins. It was also a temple dedicated to Artemis. But you already know that. Silver turned to a massive tower in the middle of the island. Underground, it seals a monster of immense power. One that's on the verge of breaking. I'm here to finish it off before it can recover. The Exelia from an ancient disaster. The thought of it alone entices me. Silver was probably the only adventurer to see Exelia like this. All others were dead. What? Was this the reason why you dragged us across half the continent? In a way, yes. I wanted to come here and finish this once and for all. Half of the continent is a bit much. We didn't even cross the sea. No. Like last time, Artemis quickly proclaimed her opinion, denying him with an iron gaze. I understand your worries, but... No, you don't. Out of everything you have done so far. This time, you're vastly overestimating your abilities. Antares isn't something you can take on. Let's return and... No one will come. You know full well that the only ones who can support us are busy. Loki would never leave Aurario to hunt an ancient monster. Not unless everything was truly going down the drain. Arenas wouldn't even allow it anyway. She's not Zeus. I bet she despises how he acted. No, I'm underestimating her. She's merely too fearful for her children. If we were to go to her, she would refuse us right off the bat, and if we told this to any of her children, the only thing we would get would be her wrath. Finn wouldn't accept coming, not without some convincing. And adding such thing to the long list of things he has to keep at the back of his mind won't help either. Now then, who else could help us? Ganesha. Ridiculous, it'd take months if not years to mount a proper raid with the way his familia handle things. Who else? There's no one strong enough to participate unless we single out individuals. But then, things would get complicated since teamwork is essential here. We're better working alone then. As for Freya, let's not mention her. Then we can just bid our time. Artemis said as she bit her lips. Can we? Now that you're here, you tell me. How long do you think this place will last? He asked as he looked at the ground. Silver could feel it, the chaotic energy on the ground. And so could Artemis. Hestia could feel it too, but she didn't quite understand what was going on. For all the wisdom of a god, Silver often asked himself if she was acting dumb on purpose. Once the seal breaks, it'll be over. Another great disaster will be released. And unlike what happened with Behemoth, there's no one to save us this time. In the past, the Thor familia was in charge of keeping Behemoth in check. Very much how Artemis followers once kept Anteri sealed. Yet, it's impossible to contain such a beast forever. Behemoth eventually escaped, and the world was met with its wrath. But at the time, heroes sacrificed themselves to end its rampage. And they're gone now. If Antares was to regain its strength, the best Silver could do was ignore it and let the people and world burn. Artemis knew of this fact, but she couldn't let him do it either. She was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Everything she wanted was a peaceful life for her children and those around her. Why did this always happen? Conflict after conflict, the world was in constant pain whenever they went. Was this really what they, the gods, envisioned? Silver couldn't affirm nor deny it. What the gods knew and desired was far beyond his understanding. But he knew what he wanted more than anyone else. And he was ready to fight for it. Even if all cursed at him. I'll slay Antares today, once and for all. Wait. Can we go back a little? I'm still a little lost. What even is this Antates or something? It's Antares. That's what I said. Silver facepalmed. In all honesty, this was far better than a know-it-all. He found her ignorance and childishness to mortal matters cute. Fine, let's camp here for now, it's getting late anyway. I'll explain the rest on the way. I hope so. As he said, the first thing Silver did was find a good location to set camp and rest, and once they settled down, he began to explain his reasons and how he came to find this place. Finding this place wasn't hard. Once he confirmed its existence, he merely paid the gnomes for access to their library, and after looking around, he found it. Or rather, he had an overall idea of the location. He spent 2 full days flying around the mountains until he finally found it. As for his reasons, he began to relay them, one at a time. But the biggest reason he was doing this was because he was afraid. Afraid he may lose something too precious to him. As night drew near, Silver looked at the unfamiliar sky, closing his eyes amidst 1,000 battle plans. He thought and thought, simulated countless times, would his preparations, albeit rudimentary, be sufficient? He did not dream that night. The next morning, Notes. Chapter 305, Slumbering Mountain. Hey there, thanks for the wait. Took me a while for this one, but it was because I took a 1-week vacation with my family, which messed up my schedule. That said, late is better than never, peace. The next morning, While Silver went to sleep early, Artemis and Hestia went to sleep much further in the night, seemingly discussing something by themselves away from him. And while he noticed them leave, he let them do their things. It was impossible for anything to escape his senses in this place. He was no werewolf, but he was sensitive enough to hear the footsteps of a clumsy goddess across the gravel. However, he closed his ears this time, feeling he had already pushed them enough with his requests. He knew that everything so far had been done with their approval. As even if he pushed amidst their denials, if they truly wanted to prevent him from moving forward, they'd make it clear. Very clear. Silver may reject most of their demands, but if a god were to tell him to stop his actions, especially one he cared deeply for, he wondered if he'd be able to go on without losing his mindset. And in this place, if he were to lose his determination for even a moment, he'd immediately turn back. Thus, he dozed off into a nap, something he desperately needed after how much energy he'd spent to get here. And by the time he opened his eyes, they were already sleeping in their sacks beside him. Gleam. And as the morning sun's golden rays pierced through the trees, he stretched his back, getting up for what would likely be a wild day. Images. It's time. The first thing he did was prepare breakfast on the side. The smell alone woke them up, and they approached him outside. Their stomachs are rumbling. For a moment, as they moved beside him, it was almost as if they weren't here to slay an ancient beast. You're up. Sit down, it's almost done, he said as he finished scrambling some eggs. Artemis sat down on a small log next to him, her gaze distrusting as a faint smile creeped out on her face. Thank you. But this won't change my decision. You talk as if I hadn't been cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day since we left. Silver chuckled as he exhaled lightly, taking a small plate for his pocket space and placing it on a table before them. And I'm thankful for that. Have I ever said otherwise? He smiled, not denying it. Silver. At that moment, Hestia butted in. Her tone serious, unlike her usual self. A slight discomfort could be seen in her body as she struggled to come up with the words to describe her feelings. After descending, she had experienced and learned so many things, some easier to take than others. Fear and happiness, worry and delight. Things she never once thought possible for her to feel. And right now, she was feeling something new yet again. A type of self-doubt and conflict she hadn't experienced before. She wanted to express those emotions but felt difficulty. It had been a very long time since she ever expressed anything similar before. So long that even with her divine mind, the memories of the event came as nothing but faint shades in her lifetime. Yes. Is it really not possible to wait? Can't we go back and gather some people? Like we did before. They may not be helpful, and I know you want to protect them, and us. But aren't you being a little too hasty this time? You've done many things before, but there was always a countermeasure. This time, I'm afraid there's none. It's possible. Silver calmly replied to her, and he cut the eggs and placed them on a plate, turning to her with a gentle and caring smile. If that's what you two truly want, we can turn back here and leave it for another time. He smiled as he said that, a defeated smile, but the smile of someone who knew when to listen. Silver moved in accordance to his emotions, something he made it clear many times before. It was his creed, the way he wanted to live, and even if he didn't want to, it often came out as extreme irresponsibility. It wasn't at a level of acting before thinking, but many times in the past, he moved like that, listening to his heart before his brain. For he had already spent an entire lifetime doing the contrary anyway. Multiple, even. It wouldn't be the first time he did such a thing with this one anyway. He wasn't a child, and many times had he given up on something for something else. It was the basis of responsibility. It was called being an adult. In a familia where he was among the oldest of them all despite not even being 19 years old, it may be a strange thing to say, but he often acted as the most mature of them all. It was the very reason why they thought him to be older, after all. Given his reply, he added, clarifying. Even if we go back, we'll have to return one day. And you already know how close that day is. It's not like I don't understand your point. No matter how much I grow, I'm afraid it would be difficult to take them, the beast even the great spirits struggled with. Are you really accepting my words? That easily? I realized I was harsh. Silver turned around, looking at the ruins of this once gorgeous temple. No, calling a temple was too little. This was almost a city. Having fun, going around the place with others. It's not just about oneself. It's about everyone. So far, I did many things out of my own volition, pulling you two here and there without giving you the chance to take a breather and enjoy the scenery. I'm sorry for that. Wait. That's not what I meant. I know, but it's how I feel. So, for your question, yes, I'm agreeing with you. And a little late at that, even. I want this to be an adventure we can fondly remember despite its ups and downs, not the adventure where Silver was stubborn. For the 10th time. Were you ever not like that? Artemis chuckled as her gaze softened. It seemed she had finally relaxed. But Silver didn't let it slide. I guess you only want toast today, huh? She covered her mouth, hiding her smile. I'm sorry, forgive me. Seeing them smile was everything to Silver, making him realize that he needed to enjoy these little moments more, no matter what he knew was ahead. If he only lived thinking about the future, he would never truly enjoy the present. With that in mind, he made his choice. If it was what they truly desired, he'd go back and return stronger, not alone, but with those he could put his trust into. But since we're here, I'll go check the seal with you. At the very least, we must understand how much time we have. So we can all prepare, together. She understood Silver's worries. And while she couldn't quite grasp why he was this concerned, like many other moments in the past, she chose not to dig too far into it. She looked at Hestia, but it didn't seem like she noticed that at all. And if she did not let it show at all. Together. She said again as she looked at Silver. Humph. He may deny it, but he was embarrassed. Later. Breakfast went by fast, and within an hour, they were walking through the empty streets of Elsos, Artemis talking about the distant past as they traveled. Like the myths once recorded on the entrance of Ishtar's home, she told them the origin of this mystical land. The secrets within this stone lost to time and history. Truly, only the gods remembered it all. Hestia was also thrilled to be around. It made her remember her time in the abandoned church before they moved out. Speaking of that, before they even realized, Hestia had vanished. And this was where they prayed. For you. Yes. It's a little embarrassing. Artemis looked at the temple as she held her hair in the faint breeze, smiling faintly as she looked at a half-broken statue of a headless woman, herself. How was it, being prayed to? Why the question? Jealous. You wish. Just a little curious. The gods and everything around them have always fascinated me, and it doesn't help you're all silent about it. It's not out of spite, you know. Well. For most, at least. She replied as she exhaled lightly. Like many things associated with the gods, explaining their meanings and principles to mortals was nothing short of a pitiful endeavor. For both sides. No matter how much you love your fish and try to explain your emotions to it, just how much of them would the fish be able to comprehend? And even if it could, how would it feel upon comprehending the innuendos of its existence? Say. Would you hear it if I prayed right now? Who knows? All right. Where are you going? To pray, of course. He said with a devious smile as he looked at her. You. Let's play a game. I'll pray for you, and then you'll recite it to me. How about that? You think I don't know what you're thinking? It's too early for you to try and play with me. She said as her cheeks grew a little red. You know what I'm thinking, you say. Well. Why don't you recite it out loud for me? He asked with a smirk as he looked at her. I think you're. Guys. Look at what I found. Hestia exclaimed out loud as she raised a small item above her head. Exclamation point. Artemis turned around in a hurry, hiding her expression. Meanwhile, Silver smacked his lips in amusement, raising his head to face Hestia, asking. How did you get up there? I'm happy she's having fun in this ominous place, but I'm a little too careless. I was too focused on Artemis' story and neglected my goddess. I can't let my guard down, not here. She excitedly raised a pair of gemstone earrings into the sky, displaying them proudly. Is that the only thing you care about? Look at how cute this is. They're quite good. Oh, I remember those. They're marital earrings, given to the departing believers whenever they left the temple to marry. If you put them on, it means you have a husband waiting for you outside. Artemis said with a chuckle as she raised her head as well. What? Hestia got super embarrassed as she looked at the earrings. She grew a little skittish as she puffed her cheeks, her eyes sparkling as she looked at them. Silver saw this as an opportunity. Are you going to put them on? What? And then no. Not now. Oh. Hestia scrambled back inside, hiding from sight. But Silver could clearly feel her breathing and rapidly beating heart as she crouched. He couldn't tell exactly what she was doing, but she definitely kept them. Meanwhile, he turned to Artemis. For someone who used to hate such things, you gave your followers quite some freedom. Artemis couldn't hold it as she laughed loudly. Ha. Those were just ordinary earrings. Are you certain you're a goddess and not a little demon? If she learns the truth, she's going to sulk for a whole month. Laugh. You're stuck with this little demon now. It's too late to run. Who said I was going to? In fact, I have another idea. There's another beast in the temple. She exclaimed as she jumped away with a smile. A goddess, huh? Silver rolled his eyes as he went after her. At least to some degree, the atmosphere had gotten a little more colorful, making Silver reconsider his plans. Again. It seems I won't be fighting it today. Antares isn't an easy monster by any means. If I want to face it, I should at least bring Haruheim to aid me. But I didn't come here without a plan. Antares isn't the kind of beast that can be killed if you have overwhelming power. I came here with the sole goal of exterminating and not fighting it like the other creatures I've met both under and above ground. I have faith in my plasmids that I can exterminate it. If I can't now, it wouldn't change anything. That said, it's not like they're my sole option. I could certainly prepare a bit more. But that's for another time. Stop. This must be it. Before the three of them was a large entrance leading underneath the central island's tower. From the outside, Silver could see faint blue lines running through the walls and ground, spreading outside like veins. The magical particles in the air were quite thick for those sensible enough to feel them, like a sea of shining plankton in the ocean. What's all of this? Hestia asked as she placed her hand on the wall, brushing off the dust as she tried to read the inscriptions hidden under it. It's the light of the seal activated by my kindred spirits. My oldest children, you could say. Artemis walked inside confidently, the two right beside her. Oldest. Like 10,000 years ago or so. If you want a smack, just ask for it, all right? Okay, I was playing around, but I am curious about how you two were in the past. I keep hearing stories about Hestia's, goddess of the flame, days. URG. Can we not? Foo-foo. That was a long time ago. I have a few other stories too. Like how she used to have a seat as one of the main gods of the Olympian pantheon. It was a chore. And then you gave it to Dionysus. Chi. Because he couldn't stop obsessing over it. He'd constantly bother me every once in a while, almost driving me mad. Until I figured out that just giving what he wanted would solve all our issues. But rather than being satisfied, he just moved on, uninterested. He always had this dark, gloomy mentality. Almost like Loki in a sense. I still remember his face when I gave him the position. And Zeus too. HM. The rumors I hear about him are quite contradictory. I often hear Zeus was a gentle and carefree old man, but some paint him as some sort of a... Zeus was pretty scary back then. But it was best put as... overworked. Artemis replied as she looked at the engravings on the wall. He had too much to look after and it was evident. And now that I think about it, his actions were all reflections of his inner desires. It's no wonder he left as soon as he was given the chance. Arenas too. Artemis added with a nod as she turned away from the strange words on the walls. You know. Artemis has her temple. Does you? Never bothered. Hestia replied all of a sudden as she looked at the side. What she means by that is that she tried and failed miserably. You see, she used to be worse than me, and that's... Oh. Stop it, please. Tell me more. Don't. /shine, / Question mark. After a few minutes walking forward, they reached the end of the corridor. The path ahead was blocked by a wide, smooth door with only a small symbol carved on it. A bow aiming at the moon, the mark of the Artemis Familia. Image. That's your symbol, isn't it? Actually, I've always been meaning to ask, what defines a god's symbol? Their arcanum. Kind of, but it's intrinsically connected. Is that why Loki's a clown, yours is a bow and a moon, and Hestia's a brazier? Yes. But where did Loki take the clown from? I don't think there were clowns tens of thousands of years ago. Was she like the first clown, or did she invent the concept? Artemis raised her hand, putting it right on his lips as she said. Don't let her hear what you just said. Also, why are you asking so many questions now? Can you keep quiet? She then pulled his nose and shook it a little before playfully letting go of it, chuckling as she walked past him. I'm just making some small talk. Besides, no one ever answers my questions. I'm still trying to learn more about you all. I'm particularly interested in how souls work, but no one ever answers. Do you want to learn? Of course. You think you do, but you don't. I imagine that if you were to be given such knowledge, your brain would explode. She replied with a sigh as she knocked on his head. You know, she may be like this, but Hestia's temple in heaven was larger than the entirety of Genkai, and she never got lost inside. Most of the time. Hey. The point is. Some things are just far too hard to be put into words. It's not that we don't want to, but that we fear what may happen if we do. Why do you think it's so difficult to learn our language? It takes a particular gift, tenacity, and talent. Centuries of accumulation and study to master it. You're only learning it because Hestia has nothing else to do all day long. How many mortals have the gods themselves as teachers? I'll maturely ignore that detail. Hestia nodded, her mood a little down, however. I see. Well, guess that's only part of the process. One day I'll get there. She smiled without replying. Hestia looked at the door, shrugging. Anyhow. We're here. What now? /touch, / Artemis touched the door, and faint blue light ignited around her. /crunk, / After a few seconds, the door began to open. We'll just check the seals inside and leave. Is that all right? She asked as she looked at Silver. Very well. Might as well scout the area first. You. Quit with your ideas. I'm just kidding. There are more than enough monsters in the dungeon for me to fight. I don't need more Excelia anyway. Although this one would be quite the thing. Killing it would likely give me enough high-quality Excelia to level up immediately. Not that I would, given my tendencies. Silver's expression suddenly sharpened as he looked at the doors. HM. What's going on? Artemis was momentarily confused as she looked at them. Artemis. Was your temple meant to look like that? Hestia asked as she pointed forward. What? Artemis turned around, and what she saw made her expression contort in a way Silver had never seen before. The walls, the ground, the ceiling, and even the air. Everything was covered by a filthy fleshy substance. Like a living wall. No, it was a living wall, breathing, beating. Everything has been taken over. Silver said with a frown as he looked around. This is worse than I thought, Badam, /. A heartbeat echoed throughout the temple. Something was there, still alive. In the dark. Antares. A true monster. It knows we're here, Badam, /. The sealed beast that profaned against the divine. Badam, /. Its heartbeat still echoed, thousands of years after its demise. Notes. Chapter 306, the ever-transforming disaster part. Everything has been taken over. A once beautiful and glorious temple. Now covered in a carpet of twitching flesh. What is all of this? Hestia stepped back in shock while Artemis stood still in disbelief, unable to believe the horror she was witnessing. Peel. Meanwhile, Silver crouched on the ground, peeling off some of the fleshy mass on the ground with ease, studying it. This looks like soft tissue. Vessels, arteries, skin. All mangled together. But it's not disorderly, this is a fully functional system. There's too much going on, it would take ages to identify everything in this tiny patch, burn. He burned the skin in his hand, waving it to cool it down after he was done. Let's hope there's nothing infectious in here. He looked at the ceiling. Thick, red vines covered the walls as they hung from a reddish-green fleshy mat. Everywhere, thousands of egg-shaped pods hang from the vines like fruits in a tree, trembling slightly as if ready to burst. Silver could also feel the intense magical signature coming from the vines and the eggs. And albeit faint, he could feel movement coming from inside them. But this was a detail he kept to himself, unwilling to share it and shake them even further. It's like a plant. It drains magical power from deep in the earth and moves it somewhere. Squish. They're protected by a strange substance. Fascinating. Silver, now's not the time. Right. Silver looked around warily. The moment they crossed those doors, it became a matter of life and death. It can't. Calm down. Look. It hasn't expanded beyond the door. The seal is still intact. For the most part. Artemis took a deep breath as she reached for her forehead, something she did often whenever she felt deeply stressed. You're right. I need to calm down. Can someone explain to me what's going on? You're too slow sometimes. What did you say? Hestia almost wanted to jump and bite Silver for his continuous abuse of her intelligence, but Artemis stopped her solemnly. Hestia. This is what my children sacrificed themselves to seal. Antares. All of this. Not quite, I'm afraid. Silver interjected as his eyes narrowed. Artemis looked at Silver, and he understood her intention, letting her explain to Hestia what they were seeing. Antares is the beast of struggle. Made as an affront to the natural order of nature, it constantly grows with everything it is exposed to. Endlessly. When it escaped the dungeon, it brought havoc across the world. Eventually, it became such a pressing issue we could not ignore anymore. 6 great spirits gathered in an attempt to kill it. But the longer the fight drew, the stronger it became. Without other options, they sealed the beast inside with my arcanum so it would never escape. It doesn't look contained to me. Right. Silver quietly listened to her explanation, having thoughts of his own. Many monsters were slain like this. While the gods rarely interjected in the mortal plane, it would be wrong to say they did not care. Be it the spirits or their divine weapons, the gods are connected to all heroic fables and myths written down. Nidhogg was slain in a similar process. While the fable has been mostly lost, it was written down in Zeus' fairy tale book. When the beast grew far too great for the mortal world to handle, 6 great spirits gathered and took it down through a ritual, invoking heaven's wrath on the mortal coil. This story is no different, but while in one they succeeded, in the other they failed. Artemis turned to Silver with a deep, frustrated glare. You were right. About what? If we don't take it down, Antares will eventually unshackle itself. It'll become an immeasurable problem. Eventually. Can you tell how long that'll take? Artemis looked at her hands with distress and confusion. Not long. Honestly, I can't tell with certainty. The seal was originally meant to last an eternity. Long enough for the magic power within its magic stone to extinguish. True to its name, even while bound by a pseudo-arcanum, it adapted, breaking free of its constraints. I can't tell how long they'll last. For thousands of years, it has been draining power from the seal, breaking it. I know this may come as lacking. But I don't know. Artemis' gaze showed her wavering emotions, together with a slight frailty she rarely ever showed. This is the first time I have ever seen or heard of a monster defy our powers. I suppose this is just another one of the lower world's mysteries. Silver said with a light smile as he patted her head. Sigh. Feeling his hand on her head made her exhale in helplessness. Why does he always do this? He enjoyed it for a moment before having enough of it. It wasn't the time nor the place for it. Push aside, She pushed his hand aside and retorted, enough. Then. What now? Hestia asked as she looked at the twitching walls. We kill it. Artemis said deeply as she clenched her right hand. But not today. She turned around, walking towards the entrance. Antares will continue to look for ways to unshackle itself. We must prepare as much as we can before it does so. Whoa there. Calm down. Silver raised his right hand, stopping Artemis by pulling her back with telekinesis. Don't wander off from me, it's dangerous. Besides, being in a hurry won't change anything. It has been here for 1,000 years. Being a few minutes faster won't change much. Instead, we should scout the area and learn more about our opponent to gauge truly how much it has changed over millennia. Learn its weaknesses and the like. Shake. Artemis shook her head dejectedly. It has no weakness. Its body is constantly changing, adapting to whatever it is exposed to at the moment. If you strike it with fire, it'll grow resilient. If you continue, it'll find a way to use it for its benefit. If you throw it in the ocean, it'll adapt accordingly, and so on. I used to think there were limits to this fact, and for centuries, I believed that. Now I understand it was nothing but arrogant ignorance. I wasn't used to failure. Silver already knew that much, but he wasn't interested in those details. It's still a monster at the end of the day, so it must possess a magic stone. Also, what exactly is being bound by the seal? It can't be its body, otherwise, it would have escaped already. Even if it's constantly evolving, a physical body cannot contain every possible factor of resistance to everything. That would be the definition of a perfect life form. Even if Antares can eventually reach that state of existence, it is far from it right now. From the little I found in the gnome library, I'm inclined to believe that what Antares possesses is a degree of rapid evolution. Rather than selectively altering its body to fulfill its demands, its body changes instinctively to meet its immediate requirements. If it bleeds, it will evolve to diminish the damage and be less exposed to it. A constant but uncontrollable evolution. It may lead to a perfect existence at the end of it all, but it won't be a streamlined process. And for a monster, as long as it contains a magic stone, it can die. And unless Antares' ability is strong enough to regenerate its body in a moment of extreme crisis like losing its head or core, then there isn't much to fear. So far, I have yet to see or hear of an existence that can defy the most basic rule of the magic stone. If it breaks, the core that binds the monster falls, and the magic energy will rapidly scatter, turning all the matter in its body into fine dust. Like cells being thrown into a saturated solution, they'll pop without balance. This is their biology. And even if it can find a way to live without it, if Antares cannot gather magical power, then it won't be able to power this process. But then again, it is better not to incite it more than required. The seal binds its whole body, preventing it from moving from the center of the temple. The arcanum can't be broken so easily as changing its form, for no tangible chains hold it in place. It is clung to this place by the Great Spirit's vow. Still. On a good note, it doesn't seem aware of us, so maybe it's sleeping. Maybe. It could also be biding its time. Let's check it out then. Oh no. What? Grab. Silver grabbed their hands, and with a light flicker, they vanished. Crunk. Not long after they disappeared, the whole cavern shook. Deeper. Whoop. Silver and the others reappeared on a balcony overlooking a massive hole leading to a central open room. Gigantic vines spread like spider webs everywhere, connecting the ceiling to the walls as they descended further into the hole, fusing as they grew thicker, tracing back to the center of the room. A pillar of stone had been carved from the world around it, standing tall in the middle of a bottomless abyss. Connected to the outside solely by a singular bridge, it was meant to separate whatever rested above it from the rest of the world. Growl. There it laid. Covered in a thick layer of dust and grime. The ancient beast, Antares. Utterly black with faint reddish stripes, it was undoubtedly a black monster. The most dangerous of them all, the kind rarely seen in the dungeon. Its existence a legend to most. Its shape reassembled that of a scorpion. From its massive tail to its chest. But rather than a scorpion's head, it had a humanoid torso with multiple arms growing from its back, followed by a heavily armored head, almost like a wyvern. Even when hunched back, it stood 10 meters high, its tail over a dozen long. Image. Growl. Cough. Bleh. I told you not to do that again. Hestia complained as she felt her stomach spin. Yes. A warning wouldn't do so bad next time. Artemis added as she got back on her feet. That said. Shah. An intense wave of pure magical power washed over them, with Silver sweating cold as he smiled faintly. It's complicated to gauge a monster's power based solely on this, but it's accurate enough. Silver wasn't a mage, nor did he have the development abilities necessary to augment his senses, but with all the training he did and his stats, he could roughly feel the movement of magical particles in the air. Although, with their thickness, even an ordinary person might have seen them. Level 7. No. It's higher than that. But something's wrong. The energy's all over the place. I see now. It's gathering power. Silver understood what he was seeing after putting the dots together. Can you give me an explanation, pretty please? I have no idea what I'm looking at. What even is that? What else could it be? But I can understand your confusion. And Terry seems to be gathering immense amounts of magical power and fueling them somewhere. I understand why I felt odd when we were on the surface. And Terry's must have parasitized the plants on the surface, using them to collect nutrients to sustain itself. While its main body remains the same, its skin has mutated, spreading around the place like algae. And from there, those mutated sections transformed, becoming fully functional organs, working together like a living organism. Silver looked at the rocky walls before continuing. You can't see it, but these vines expand to the surface, albeit not that far after. It seems the seal prevents it from spreading beyond a certain range. Still, Antares has figured out the limits of the seal and grown around it, taking control or influencing most plants above. No wonder the plants were a little odd. Even if they haven't changed much ever since this place was populated, Antares' flesh and magical power must have altered their appearance. It has also excavated much of the walls. At this point, I'm afraid this place is being kept in place by its efforts and not its architecture anymore. In other words, we may as well be inside it. Then what is that? That's its real body. Everything else is an extension of it, a means to an end. If I can give meaning to a monster's actions. Turning his head to Artemis, he asked, do you have anything to add? She shook her head silently. We better leave before it notices us then. Is that really okay? Hestia asked as she wiped her slimy hands on her dress. This place is gross. No. This is Artemis Temple. URG. It's completely still. Can't we? No. It's too risky. While mostly quiet, Artemis was adamant in her choice. Being true to her stubborn reputation. The issue here isn't if I can kill it but what may happen if I cannot. If I fail, I may end up hastening its eventual reemergence. But at this rate, I can kill it, I definitely can. As long as a monster can bleed, I can take it down. Antares can adapt all it wants, we just don't give it the time to do so. But that requires us to outmatch its powers severely. We can theorize all we want. Speaking won't change a thing. Silver turned around, getting ready to pull them out of the place. Wait. Bring me closer. Who? All right. Why are you agreeing with her? Grab. Wait. Can't you leave me here? You're staying within an arm's reach of me at all times, and there's no negotiation. URG. Jump. Silver held their hands, jumping from the balcony into the void below. Notes. Chapter 307, The Ever-Transforming Disaster End. /whoosh, / land, / Silver gently led them down the shaft, landing just before a massive gate that led deeper into the temple. Growl, / Before them, Antares rested quietly in the middle of the abyss, the hustle of its humongous body shaking the very foundation of this temple. Twitch. The vines connected to its body continuously pumped essence into its body, the slushing liquid within reverberating with their skin. Like a powerful drum, it suppressed even their heartbeats. Image. Artemis. I hope whatever you want to do doesn't take too long. Hestia was fearful of the beast, hugging tightly onto Silver as she sneakily looked around from behind him. Silver did not deny her emotions, feeling something similar to her, but he couldn't help but think about it more. Just what exactly could a god even fear? What was she feeling, exactly? Was her love for him the same as he had for her? Unnecessary thoughts, the kind Silver had and cast aside soon after. I won't take too long. What do you need? Can I help? Just time. That's all I'll need. Very well. Silver supported her actions, standing behind her as she clasped her hands together. She knelt on the ground, ignoring the dirt and grime as it stained her dress, focused solely on her task. Shua. Being the caring mortal he was, he did not let her be tainted, sending a powerful blast of air around her, cleaning the ground of its ancient accumulation, revealing enigmatic symbols and carvings that told a long-lost story. It made Silver think about how this temple looked in the past. When its colors were still vibrant, when thousands inhabited these halls. Shine. Immediately after, Artemis' body began to sparkle as blue wisps of light gathered at her fingertips. Mystical energy rose from the ground as the carved symbols came to life, lighting up the whole temple underneath the fleshy mass. Artemis. This isn't the first time I've seen it. But this would be my first time seeing a god use their arcanum directly. Her hair turned bright as the ethereal energy surrounded her, causing the surrounding rocks and pebbles to defy gravity and rise into the air. She closed her eyes and lightly tilted her head, performing a praying gesture as she looked at Antares. The runes grew brighter, releasing a strong, yet soothing heat. Crack. And then. Silence. The whole temple suddenly stopped moving, as if time had stopped. Open. However, it wasn't that time had stopped revolving but rather. Antares. Screech. After thousands of years, the slumbering beast opened its vengeful gaze, peering into the world it was meant to annihilate, but failed. Feeling the intense presence of its greatest enemy, Antares was sent into a rage as it trashed around. Tremble. See, can we go home? Silver held Hestia by the shoulder, looking around sharply. It can wait. Stay close to me, he proclaimed as he clenched his fists, ready to defend himself. The whole temple began to quake as Antares felt the goddess aura. I thought it was sleeping. Even I would wake up if someone barged into my room like this. Oh yeah, it happens every time. Now's not the time for jokes. Hestia exclaimed as she shook his arms. Screech. Kyaa. Crack. Antares attempted to move its body, but the invisible chains binding it kept it in place. The ground cracked open as intense magical energies burst from its depths. The pulsating vines contracted and trembled as they supplied power to the restless beast. He didn't know what it was trying to do, but regardless of its intentions, Antares' actions would only result in this temple crumbling onto itself. Roar. Crack. As he feared, the entire temple began to collapse, unable to contain the ancient beast's wrath. Boom. Before them, pieces of the precipice surrounding the beast cracked, falling into the abyss below. Only after half a minute did the echoes of its fall reach their ears. That hole. It is quite deep. Over a kilometer. Should we be focusing on that now? Hestia jumped onto Silver's shoulders as she held onto his hair as the ground underneath them cracked. Silver exhaled in distress, trying to calm her down while closely monitoring the chaotic situation. Bam. Behind them, the ancient structures buried in flesh began to fall like comets, striking the earth with tremendous force. Silver rose his arms, blocking the falling and splintering debris from interrupting her prayer. Sheen. Soothing white light shone from above, casting the pillar and the abyss in splendor. Moonlight. But it's pretty early. Silver tilted his head to look at the ceiling, only learning now that it was open, leading directly into the blue skies above. It feels weird. Soothing, like sunlight, but different. Not weaker, but something else. A round moon covered the sky. Perfectly fitting inside the circular ceiling, like an eclipse, it cast a bright veil on the temple. Sheen. Roar. Light flashed in the room, blinding Silver and Hestia. URG. What happened? When they opened their eyes again, a strange scene appeared before them. Antares. It turned to stone. Only momentarily. Artemis turned around, approaching them as she cleaned the sweat off her face. It's done. I've sealed him. Won't there be consequences for using your arcanum? Silver asked with a deep frown. A god's use of their arcanum usually signifies a direct trip to heaven. No questions asked. If that's done out of their own volition or not, it doesn't matter. Either way, I don't want to see her being dragged away. Much less by an angry god in heaven. I didn't do anything outside the rules. You see, this temple is dedicated to me, a place of respite for my followers and children. It's filled with my divinity and ichor, which lets me do things I wouldn't be often allowed or able to outside. Many gods cast down artifacts and spirits to aid their followers through time. Sometimes they were stolen and sent down in the eternal struggle between the gods. I was no different. My arcanum was invoked eras ago. I only modified it a little. So there won't be significant repercussions. To help guide and protect the innocent, I cast down a droplet of my blood, and while it has long dried, this land still carries the aura of heaven. Looking at Hestia, she added, Hestia can also do the same. Although she rarely interacted with the lower world from what I remember. HHEY. That's like a super secret. Oh. Is that true? Silver teased as he lightly pinched her cheeks. Ouch. No fair. Can we talk about that later? Heh, I'm just playing around. Then. What now? We've done everything we could. Let's leave. Crack, / Exclamation point. Breaking the silence, the stone skin covering Antares began to crack. Hey Artemis. Don't worry, it won't be moving anytime soon. You don't sound too confident. Silver looked down at the creature before him. His experience told him now was the best time to end it all, but he knew things wouldn't be easy. Otherwise, Artemis would have told him to do so already. Let's go. We've spent enough time in this depressing place. I thought things would end like this, but I'll have to cut this adventure short, it seems. It's time to go back home, /schwa/. Silver held both of their hands, and with the faint swirl of wind, they all vanished. Step, / HM. Silver. Silver. What are you doing? Back at the entrance, Hestia stopped with a frown as she turned back to look at Silver. Give me a minute. I just need to fetch one of these. 2. 5. Standing on his tiptoes, Silver reached out for the egg sacs in the ceiling, pulling some down and putting them on the ground. Why? Why are you grabbing those disgusting things? For research. If I can understand how Antares adapts to its surroundings. The principle behind its mutation. It wouldn't be too difficult for me to replicate it. I've tried researching how some monsters utilize magical particles before, but never had the time to go too in-depth. But if there's one worth putting my time on, it's this one. Besides, Antares' adaptation can help me understand what a god's arcanum is, even if at an extremely rudimentary level. It was prophesied that Antares would devour the world. And it almost did. It has the potential to consume a god and utilize their powers instinctively. It is a connection with the divine, one of the reasons I was so adamant in exterminating it. But as Artemis pointed out, this desperation of mine made me hasty. I'll take my time researching it. There's no telling when an opportunity like this will come by again. I feel like you have some other reason behind this. But as long as you keep it out of my sight, I won't mind. Pinch. Pinching his shoulders, Artemis commanded in a stern voice, just don't cross the line. Yes, ma'am. Sha. High in the skies, the trio quickly ventured into the wilderness, returning from where they came. The atmosphere wasn't bright as Artemis kept her head down, lost in her thoughts. Hestia would often try to talk with her, but it was evident she was in her world, barely reacting, only replying with superficial remarks. Disheartened? Silver asked without turning to her. Her lack of reaction made Silver roll his eyes. So he turned to Hestia, asking with a faint smile. It seems like we forgot Artemis back there. Should we turn around to fetch her? Well. Sigh. I'm all right. Just thinking about something. Something that happened 10,000 years ago. Not that long. Jerk. At least tell it to my face. I don't know what you're talking about. Artemis rolled her eyes, turning to Hestia and smiling. The two of them looked at each other faintly, talking only with their eyes before smiling. Are we heading back home? I thought we'd be away for longer. I did have plans to visit some northern cities and see how things were over there. You know. Have an actual vacation. But it doesn't feel right to enjoy some time off now. There was a lot I wanted to do before returning, but the journey ended there. I thought that visiting her shrine might sour the mood. And I was right. I should have passed by at the end instead. There was too much I wanted to do. Be it the Black Desert or the Elven Forests. I also wanted to go after it. Forget it. I'll leave it for later, maybe when I come here to kill it once and for all. The spirit land that always draws me. I wanted to see if going there in person would give me some answer as to why my soul is connected with the place. But I'll have to go there on my own some other time. Silver scoffed mentally but remained stoic on the outside. We'll go back home and figure out things from there. I'm sorry for ruining the mood. Regardless of what we saw, being hasty wouldn't change anything. You aren't to blame. If anyone is to take that, then it would be me. So far, I've done little but selfishly drag you two around the place, so. Stop it now, we already had that talk. I don't want to hear those words again. She replied with a scoff as she waved her hand at him. How about some music then? Ha! Are you going to play the flute again? What of it? Was my past performance breathtaking? More like ear-shaking. She refuted with a chuckle as she rested her head on the side of the boat. Guys. Can you stop acting as if I'm not here? Chuckle, /. That said. Silver. Are we stopping by the village? Hestia asked as she sat beside him. Which one? Ida's village or my parents'? Both. We can stop by both if you want. I wanted to show Orario to my parents. Although I'm on the fence given everything going on behind the scenes. Or rather, under the city. You still want to go somewhere, don't you? Artemis smiled at him as she sat beside him, looking at the horizon. Was it obvious? I can't tell if you overestimate or underestimate us. Do you think I wouldn't notice that this isn't the same direction we came in? Hestia. When we arrived, the sun was over there, right? But now, where is it? Think about the time and give me an answer. It should have been there. Oh. Silver. All right, you two got me. I'm not going back home. Where are we going? To a place I can't miss. Yeah, a place that we have to stop by at least once. Silver smiled, looking at the mountains on the distant horizon. We're going to Olympia. What? Notes. Chapter 308, A Divine Debt Part. We're going to Olympia. Gasp. Shock and confusion froze their expressions as the goddesses processed what they just heard. After a few seconds in disbelief, and as memories of the past went by, they simultaneously exclaimed. What? Silver. Do you even know what you're saying? Scratch that. Do you even know where Olympia is? I have a rough estimation of its location. Most people don't know these things, but that's exactly why I spent some of my recent free time at the Gnome Library to fill the gaps in my knowledge about this world and plan a little. However, it's costly. Gnomes don't share their things cheap. The gnomes made quite an impressive library, but it's remarkably lacking in many ways. To some degree, Zeus' book helped me pinpoint things. But say, why the sudden interest? I can tell your desire is more than just sightseeing. Artemis was quick to notice the underlying emotions within Silver's tone, and he knew that hiding his intentions wouldn't help much, so he said what he had on his mind. For once, it ties back to Olympus, something I wanted to learn more about. And second, I wanted to see the sacred fire. I want to know more about it, which may relate to my skill. Although it's nothing but morbid curiosity. I went to kill Antares because I knew of Artemis' possible fate. Although I overestimated myself severely. But this time, I don't know much about the area. We're going in blind. I can understand those reasons, there's nothing wrong with that. But you do know Olympia is selective with who can enter its territory. Artemis said as she tied her hair behind her back. Selective isn't even correct. I don't think they ever welcomed guests. I know. There are many legends about it. Olympia is technically the oldest living culture in the world, tracing back thousands of years ago. And they work hard to protect it. The little known about Olympia comes from century-old information when their merchants went around the land to trade. There hasn't been any in some time, but that hasn't changed my desire to go there. Albeit those times are long gone, Olympia is the original land of myths and legends, the ones who fought against the monsters and created fables to be passed down. They now stay at the edge of history, observing it from afar. That is their land of hope, Elpis. The land where the flame of heaven is worshipped. An ancient temple to house the divine fire. They rarely let anyone inside if ever, but if someone can come and go, it's a goddess of the Olympian pantheon, no. Now you use my title, huh? Hestia complained as she pouted on the side. Have I ever not seen you as such? Hestia looked at her hands, raising one finger at a time as she counted the times Silver disrespected her. Let's count. During our time in the church. 1. 5. 7. That's a bit much. Chuckle. Hestia doesn't forget those who wrong her. I included. You're one to talk. I heard some things about your past actions. Oh. And where did you hear that from? Artemis asked with a dangerous smile as she tapped his legs. Hermes. Silver did not hesitate to throw the towel somewhere else. Sorry men, you'll be taking the bullet for this again. At you. Someone's talking behind my back. Asphi. We must find out. Hermes looked around in confusion as he scratched his nose, only to narrow his eyes as he pointed forward, saying with determination. Hermes-sama, if you try to leave your post for even a second with such a weak excuse. Again. I'll bolt your legs to the chair, and if you complain, I'll tape your mouth shut. Hermes immediately sat down without complaint, his expression becoming focused as he looked at Asphi, raising his left hand. Asfi, pardon my actions, for I was just joking. Now, would you be so inclined as to give me the next stack of papers? He asked formally as his expression sharpened, a rare look in a god mostly known for his mischief. Shah, HM. Is that? Silver. I think we arrived. After half a day in the sky, the trio witnessed a strange disturbance in the ocean. Land had long since vanished in the waves, and water covered the horizon everywhere they looked. The famed Sea of Medulla, a massive river as wide as multiple continents, carving a path through the mainland, one of the massive rivers of the continent, similar to the Great Forests River in the land of the elves. Silver had only heard of such a natural phenomenon, and for once wished to see where such a gargantuan river originated from. Alas, that was a journey better left for another time. The air is shaking. Above the sea, the air shook as if under extreme heat, lifting a hazy mist that reached the skies as the very ocean boiled. That was no natural occurrence. It was the barrier that protected Olympia. The reason why their secrecy was kept so well throughout the ages. Or at least, that was what was written in the documents. When and how such a barrier had come to be wasn't explained in the gnome's thousand-year records. We have arrived. That's the barrier surrounding Olympia erected by the holy fire. Artemis brushed her eyes as she woke up from her nap, asking, how are we going to cross it? I was planning on just crossing it really. Just like that. Well. You're the goddess of fire, so nothing will happen to you. I'm your child, so nothing should happen to me either. And Artemis is a goddess of Olympus. So she should be okay. That's not something I'd like to find out. Gods have burned for toying with the flame before, I'd like to remain off the list if possible. She's right, Silver, it's best we don't risk it. We can't know how the flame has changed since it fell into the mortal world. Hestia replied as her expression changed slightly. Shouldn't you know of that, though? Hashtag. Excuse me. If it's a lesson you want, sit down, and I'll. Alright, Hestia, he's just toying with you. Humph. That's another to the list. She grumpily crossed her arms, adding an extra number onto her imaginary list of grudges. Ha. So it's plan B. Can you open the barrier? What? Why would I be able to do that? Because. You're the goddess of the flame. You have a point. I'll give it a try. Step. Hestia walked to the front of the boat with Silver's help, balancing at its tip as she held onto her hand. Flash. Her eyes flashed with red-orange light like dusk, and the barrier before them wavered as the air returned to normal. I did it. I think. Good work. I knew you could do it. Foo. Praise me more. You are the greatest goddess of fire. Hestia raised her nose high, smugly accepting the exaggerated praise. So great she was that she let it be stolen right in front of her. Artemis added with a smirk as she yawned on the side. Hey. While Hestia jumped at Artemis, almost falling from the boat, Silver pushed them forward, moving past the barrier as it reformed behind them. That must be it. In the distance, as the faint fog and haze cleared out, a massive island surrounded by a few smaller ones appeared before them. As the sun dove into the horizon, crimson lights lit up in the darkness, illuminating the ancient city in its ephemeral splendor. It's been a while since I last saw it. Artemis said as she pushed Hestia away from her. Have you ever been here? Artemis shook her head, no. But it's hard to forget that day. URG. Hestia seemed to remember something as she touched the back of her head, a bead of sweat falling from her forehead as she sighed loudly. That day. When Prometheus stole the flame of heaven, Zeus went into a rage so large the heavens were dyed red by its flames as his thunder echoed throughout the entire lower world. Ha! Don't even say it, I thought the skies would break. I think they did for a while. Hestia added as she remembered that scary day. Right, gods can erase the lower world if they so desire. I often forget the fact amidst the goofy displays. It's hard to think that even Hermes can destroy the world and that Apollo can collapse the sun or something like that. Artemis put her hands on her hips as she looked at the city in the distance, melancholy evident in her gaze as she continued with her story. Prometheus had overwhelming sympathy for them, how they fought against the monsters spawning from the dark hole. How only a few, known as heroes, were responsible for their survival and prosperity. She couldn't accept that. Then why the outrage against her? Was what she did even wrong? It's not like gods never interfered. That wasn't the issue. She didn't take the right steps. She gave mortals the flame as a weapon and not as a tool of cultivation. The flame is simply too large an issue to be handled in the lower world. Its power, albeit not comparable, is still equivalent to that of the gods. You could say it's a form of demi-arcanum. It's really dangerous. When they found out the flame was stolen, they all tried to lock her up at the speed of light, but by the time they reached her, the flame was already on its way down the lower world. Huh. When you say they, do you mean you too? Oh, of course I do. Do you think I stayed in my room while the flame of heaven was stolen from its altar? Say something. Oh, ouch. Don't bite me. Wasn't that what you did, though? Hey, Artemis. I was. I'm not made to pursue and fight. Hestia looked at the distance while whistling. Artemis shook her hand and then her hands, waving off into the distance. Sigh. It doesn't matter anymore, it happened way too long ago. Couldn't you guys just pull the flame back? Why stay put and watch it fall? Silver. That was during the time the gods stood holed up in heaven. Their ability to interfere with the lower world was limited at best. If we had forced things, untold disasters might have unfolded. One thing we learned as time passed is that by trying to help, we'd often make things worse. Bara was like that too. Its people must resolve the lower world's problems. That's how things should be. For everyone's well-being. Artemis turned to Silver, finishing her story. Olympia is the land right below where Zeus and Prometheus struggled after the fact. It eventually became a temple built by the mortals to house the flame. Originally, it was called Elpis instead, signifying hope in the ancient language. Yeah. I read about that. Another detail written in Zeus' storybook. Though I wonder how he must have felt writing that down after all the rage he felt. No wonder that part wasn't written down. Zeus only wrote about Prometheus' helplessness and desire to help the mortals and the one she chose to be her champion. However, in the end, he failed to bring closure to the lower world's problems. In the end, sending the flame down did nothing but shatter the natural order of things. At least Zeus seemed to understand her struggle, maybe because he, too, felt like her. You know quite a bit for someone who rarely looked down at the world, don't you? Humph. Look. You can see the temple on the highest mountain above the city. Silver followed her finger to a massive temple overlooking the city. It was strange to think that such a hazardous item, able to burn the whole world, was housed within, like a small sun. At the time, I was busy with other things, so I'm uncertain about the events. Truth be told, no one knows what Zeus and Prometheus talked about, nor what happened. While I was curious. Like most gods do, I pushed the matter so far down that I had already descended by the time I remembered it. And then. It stopped mattering to me. The way gods see things always surprises me. Letting thousands of years roll by despite the severity of the issue. What about you? Me. After that, I was busy. Work and that, you know. What she means by that is after Prometheus stole the flame, she became a neat. What? Hestia used to take her job rather seriously, but after a while, she grew a little complacent. So much so, Zeus grew tired of trying to get her to take it all seriously. It wasn't like that. She even gave away her seat as one of the 12 main gods to Dionysus just because of her laziness. I did that because I didn't want to see him fight others for it. Artemis shrugged as Hestia's face grew red. To end this, she completely let go of her responsibilities after the flame was sent to the mortal world. Why do you think she has no temples or followers? That's too much even for you. You know what? You're on the wall. No more talking with you until you take back what you said. Sigh. Hestia attacked Artemis again as she grew ferocious, and amidst laughs and tossing, they landed near the giant city. Just outside its walls. The ancient metropolis awaited. Meanwhile, silence, Within the massive temple above Olympia, numerous priestesses kneeled before a sword on a pedestal, listening to another as she looked at a gigantic central pillar behind the sword. There, a black stone slab hangs in the white marble. Blue symbols shining on its surface. The goddess of fire, Hestia, has arrived. Let her witness the flame of heaven and lead us to salvation. Chatter. Words of confusion and excitement spread around as the priestesses sprang to their feet. Silence. The central priestess turned around, bringing order to the hall as her expression turned sharp. Another oracle has been given, spread out, and find the goddess of fire. Nightfall is about to happen. Secure her at all costs before they arrive. Understood. Scatter. Do you think they'll welcome us? It's quite late. They may take us as rude. If they don't let us inside, we can camp outside and try again in the morning. And if they keep refusing our entry, we can just get inside regardless. Why do you always do things outside the rules? Can't you be normal for once and accept a no? What do you mean always? I only break out of the norm when things are ridiculous. Heh. Silver, if everyone thought like you, the world would be in chaos. Hestia added as she laid on the boat's floor. And who said others should follow my example? It's only true because I'm special. That's extremely narcissistic. She added as she rolled her eyes. Depends on the perspective. Artemis scoffed, resting her head on her hands as she placed her elbows on the boat's side. I'll have to disagree with you on that one. Tremble. As they reached the shores, the whole land began to quake. What? What's going on? No. Hestia screamed in fear as she looked at the island. It was the first time Silver had seen such fear in her expression. What's going on? He turned to Artemis, but he saw an extremely pained look on her face as she crushed the sides of the boat with her bare hands. Can someone tell me? Boom. Midway through his sentence, the whole city burst into flames. Notes. Chapter 309, Update, very important. Honestly. I've been putting this back for quite a while and I'm ashamed of it. A little anxious even. It's been several months that I've been doing it, but a few might already know that I have been rewriting this whole story, albeit only recently have I decided to sit down and start posting it. I decided to this after rereading this story twice to try and sit down and continue, but things haven't been working out. It happened before but this time I just couldn't continue. Call it writer's block or my laziness. I'd say it's mostly the latter. I'm here to offer a preposition. It may take a while, but I'm posting the chapters. I want to see just how far I can go and if the boost from doing so will help me break past the wall I've stopped before. Or maybe even go to a completely unrelated direction. I have been considering changes to the story, major ones, like changing the familia he joins. Someone even offered to have Silver join a small familia first and then move on to a stronger one over time since it is shown that many adventurers do it. So in short, I'm here to ask one more thing of you all. If you're interested in following the story through the beginning again, like I did with Zero Fate and Azimuth, this one's not dead, I'll be rewriting it and would like to see what everyone thinks about it. If you're interested in following it, the novel's name is exactly the same as this one but with a new version. You might have noticed this one now has old version tied to it. That wasn't a mistake. I don't have much else to say. I'm working on it and I'm having lots of fun. If you're interested, then go check it out. I'll be there to listen to your suggestions. If there is a time to say them, it's now. Thank you for everything in these almost 3 years. I'm out, peace. P.S. Also. I'll be posting all unedited chapters I've been holding here at once. Thanks for everything. Chapter 310, A Divine Debt Part. Boom. The whole city suddenly lit up, becoming a large pyre. Burn. Twisting red flames crawled to the skies, bursting from the ground below like magma in an active volcano. Houses were consumed in the blink of an eye, trees ignited like matches, the ground bubbled as it melted under the extreme heat. Fiery embers flew around like flower petals in the wind, a beautiful yet horrifying scene. Screams. Even from this distance, kilometers from the shore, they could all hear the pained cries of desperation and misery as chaos unfolded in the distorting haze. And no. Hestia was still in disbelief as she leaned over the edge of the boat, her eyes wide open as they trembled with her overwhelming emotions. Silver held onto her to prevent her from falling over, but his expression was tense just the same. His eyes showed his seriousness. This was no time to joke around. A strange sensation was rising within him, but he couldn't quite tell what it was. Silver. On it. Hold tight. Fume. Silver immediately teleported the boat to the coast, jumping into the burning pier as he clenched his fists, readying himself for trouble. I don't know what's going on, but that can wait. Both Hestia and Artemis seem to know what's going on, but now is not the time to ask questions. The ground is smoking due to the heat. This is utterly insane. Could anyone even survive this? But he knew better than to deny such a possibility, so he put his hand forward, erecting a shield around them. Stay close to me. We're going to save as many people as we can. Silver declared as he raised his right arm high. Please. I'll help you. Hestia tried her best to stay composed, not to distract him, but she couldn't. Something was weighing on her, something heavy. Artemis had a similar expression, but her sense of justice was higher. Even if she felt something, saving others and ensuring they were okay came first. Even in this burning world, as a goddess with little strength, even if she were to be burned to ashes, if it came to one more life saved, she'd willingly throw herself into the fire. This was just the kind of goddess she was. Snap. Cling. Silver snapped his fingers, causing a wave of wind and sound to spread around the entire pier, faintly blowing away the flames in their immediate vicinity. But as he closed his eyes to focus, his expression slowly changed as he noticed something odd. Something that shouldn't be true. Snap. Cling. He snapped his fingers again to confirm his suspicions. And as the seconds came to be and he did nothing, both Artemis and Hestia began to grow restless. What are you doing? We need to save them. Silver did not answer, his expression cold as he bit his lips momentarily. It was a rare show of helplessness, something Silver never had shown before while working. He had been helpless before, knowing his limits to help others, but it usually came with his cold, understanding gaze. This time, however, he could not take it, the truth far too heavy to convey. Silver. We need to. Artemis grew even more restless, but knew something was wrong as she looked at him. She held onto his shoulder, shaking it, but with each movement, she grew a little weaker. Let's keep going, he said after a while, threading into the flames. The goddesses did not complain, following him in silence. They already knew the answer. That if Silver had not acted, was because in this place, there was not a single soul left to save. Burn, slash. The whole city burned in ember flames. The sky was covered in ash and smoke, a reddish gleam in every nook and cranny his eyes fell upon. Sand was turned to glass, rocks were melted into puddles. Cracks on the ground ran across whole street blocks, pressurized flames bursting out from within. Sizzle, slash. URG. Being careful as he used his abilities to protect them, Silver would often neglect himself, letting the extreme heat kiss his skin, burning it like meat in a pan. Be careful. This much is fine, we don't have the time to be gentle. It's hot, exceptionally so. Even with my resistance, I can't even approach a dozen meters from those fountains. Heated plasma is forming at the entrance of those fissures, they all lead somewhere. The same source. Could this be the holy fire? But why is this holy flame so chaotic, burn, slash. It was an intense heat, not merely physical. It was hard to explain, but Silvet felt his skin, muscles, and bones burn. Not only that, even his magic and spirit seemed to heat up before this chaotic flame in a twisted resonance. A fire that transcended mortal boundaries, it burned with seemingly no fuel, spreading everywhere without air as if having a will of its own. The magic in the air was dissipating with any signs of life this land ever had. The ichor of the goddess of fire within him shook, welcoming yet dreading the existence around him. There was a connection between them, faint yet solid. A line he couldn't quite grasp but knew of its existence. A spiritual connection. A primordial fear. This fire was burning his very emotions, feeding off of them, growing stronger with his every step. As the fire raged, this connection grew stronger, but so did his sense of dread. The fire moved erratically but with a strange pattern, almost as if the flames wanted to swallow him. Roar, slash. Exclamation point. As Silver parted the flames in search of survivors, protecting the goddesses behind him. They arrived at an open patch of land with ruined buildings around them. It was a plaza of some sort, the fountain in its middle dry as it smoked under a flaming pillar. Pieces of wooden stalls and cloth hang around the place. It was scary to think that maybe, moments before their arrival, this place had been bursting with activity. Yet now, only the crackling of fire and the smell of burning charcoal remained. Roar, slash. From the flames consuming a building next to them, a group of creatures stepped out like dancing tongues of fire. What is that? Artemis asked as she reached for a sword at her waist, her expression tense. She had an inkling about those, but didn't dare say what she had in mind. Silver didn't notice her expression, otherwise, he wouldn't have kept quiet. I don't know, but it's not friendly. Roar. It was a humanoid creature vaguely resembling a person. Thin limbs and a head wider than its shoulders where a twisting mass of flames gathered like a burning torch. Its body was made of flames and just that. A walking fire. Slash. When one appeared, a dozen others followed suit like zombies crawling out from their tombs. They had been surrounded before they could even process what was going on. Stay back. Things are getting stranger and stranger. If I was suspicious before, now I'm certain. But I still have a glaring question. Even with such intense heat, there should have been hints of the people it devoured. Screams, flesh melting, burning meat, charred bones. Yet nothing remains. Only dead ruins and these beasts remain. Throw. Silver was the first to act. He pushed Hestia between him and Artemis, shielding her from the strange creatures. He then tested one of them by throwing a rock at high speeds with telekinesis, precisely hitting the swirling mass of flames where he thought was their head. The creature burst into cinders, but soon enough, 3 more took its place, stretching in a strange tone as they ran without fear. The beasts moved just as one would have expected. They acted as a moving bonfire, blending in with each other like waves in the ocean, acting like one continuous stream. The only way to differentiate them was by checking their burning cores, or so Silver deemed those to be. But as he looked at those swirling masses of fire, something seemed to stir inside him as well. Slash blast, slash. Silver found this property of theirs odd but did not dwell in it. Instead, he focused on dealing with this issue, pushing them all back with a powerful air wave. Slash screech, slash. The impact pushed back all of the flaming creatures before him, causing some to dissipate, but not all. At the same time, he noticed that more were coming from the flames around him, and with a decisive thought, he held onto Artemis and Hestia, jumping into the sky. They're endless, we need to find a safer place. Until I figure out what these are and how to deal with them. I've already spent too much energy just being here, this place isn't safe. Kaya. Hestia screamed as she was dragged into the skies. Meanwhile, Artemis looked around her, seeing the flames of destruction but not a single plea for help. The silence. It was like a knife digging deep into her chest. Slash clang, slash. Exclamation point. Silver. There are people. I heard that. Echoes of battle coming from somewhere deeper in the city, closer to the center of this metropolis. A tall temple above a mountain, the only place not overtaken in flames. That's likely where the survivors gathered, and if a resistance has been formed, it's likely at its edges. Although. Silver looked around the city, noticing how the fire only spread to the inner sections of the city. It looks like the fire hasn't spread to the rest of the island, we'll have to check those places later. Maybe prevent the fire from going there. We'll get our answers soon, regardless. Exclamation point. Seeing people still struggling, a glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes. And he flew them closer. Slash roar, slash. What? Slash smack, slash. Suddenly, a large flaming bird swooped in from the skies, almost knocking them down. TSK. They can fly too. Get me a bow. Artemis exclaimed as she scouted her surroundings. Silver avoided easily, but like before, when one appeared, a dozen more followed. Simultaneously, he pulled a bow and a quiver from his pocket space, handing them to Artemis, who immediately proceeded to shoot. Slash burn, slash. However, her arrows burned before they could heat the creatures, and those that did not burn on time only managed to knock the birds for a moment before they recovered. Slash whoosh, slash. Even so, she kept shooting with incredible skill. Damn it. These are stronger than the ones below. They take the shape of monsters and are vicious. Unrelenting. Compared to these, the others are tame. Slash swoop, slash. Get away. Slash blast, slash. They aren't weak either. Their bodies may look frail, but the flames are solid. They're like second-class monsters. This entire place. It's like being thrown back at the lower floors of the dungeon. Slash roar, slash. Slash clang, slash. Slash chatter, slash. We're almost there. My head's spinning. I don't feel so good. Please hold it in, Hestia. Silver knew his movements weren't being kind to the girls, but at the same time, he felt it was too dangerous to teleport around without knowing what was around him. If that wasn't enough, some strange force seemed to be meddling with his plasmids, or rather, the magical power in the atmosphere, causing his strength to wane and waver. He wasn't confident in ensuring their safety while those were in effect. Slash land, slash. Slash bam, slash. Slash clang, slash. There are more on the left. Reinforce the rear. Mages. Take out the flammagons in the sky. Understood. We're going to carve a path through the city. Follow. In the middle of the ruins of a street block, dozens of soldiers clad in red metallic armor fought side by side as they pushed through the swarm of flaming beasts. Around them were dozens of priestesses with veils on their faces. They helped everyone around with supreme fighting skills and a strange control of fire. That is. These people, they're incredibly skillful. Too much even. Enough to put even most. No. Maybe all adventurers except a few to shame. They're coordinated like a hive mind, knowing each other's movements to a T. Their leader is also extremely competent, and all her orders are flawless. They're really carving their way through fire. That's not all. What is this strange magic they're controlling? Is it even magic? They aren't chanting at all. This was Silver's first time experiencing what others felt when they looked at him. Someone able to invoke magic without any gesture at all. A power that broke common sense. If he were to explain what he saw, these people were no less powerful than an army of first-class adventurers. So this is Olympia. I should have expected no less than the birthplace of ancient heroes. Their leader looked at Philip with open eyes, ecstatic yet tense at the same time. Wait. You are. Cue quickly. There is no time to explain. We need to reach the Grand Temple. What's going on? Silver asked as he looked at them warily. We'll explain everything, so please, follow us. We've been expecting you. Question mark. Expecting us? But we just arrived. Something's wrong. I can feel it deep down. My instincts are telling me that something is deeply wrong. Silver trusted his instincts, but he knew he couldn't just turn back without an answer. It wouldn't leave a good taste in his mouth. The same could be said for his companions. He looked at Hestia and Artemis, and they nodded. He pulled back his sleeves, helping the Olympians return to the temple, taking out everything on their way. However, they were so efficient that he quickly found himself without work. So instead, he took a more passive role, focusing on helping the injured and assisting where possible, paying deep attention to their every movement and actions, their gestures and words as they climbed the mountain. They spoke in the same dialect, but it was ancient and heavy. Their words had a deep accent, but the language was the same. It didn't seem like they held any ill intent towards them, but the more he looked around and fought with them, the greater his restlessness became. Something was coming, something big. Maybe the biggest one. The hardest challenge he had yet to face. His heart beat with strength and anxiety. He didn't like this. He hated the feeling of being in the dark. What could be coming? How was he meant to prevent it? Did the others know? Were they thinking of solving it? How were they going to do it? And better yet, what did this mean to him and those he cared about? Were they in danger? He hated this feeling but kept fighting. He would get some answers, one way or another. // Notes. Chapter 311, A Divine Debt Part. The group pierced the darkness and fire, reaching the foot of the Grand Temple. However, as they neared the upward pathway, they stopped before a strange section of the city where no flames could be seen. It was a perfect street with blue torches along its path, leading to another corner of the city they hadn't been before, casting a beautiful and calm light onto this otherwise horrific night. Image. Silver noticed how calm this place felt compared to outside. His first thought was that this was some sort of barrier, given they were sent here in a straight line. These people were prepared, making him even more suspicious. Because no matter where he looked, no one was in sight. Why create a barrier if there wasn't anything to protect? We're here. I know it may sound strange, but I implore you, everything will be explained tomorrow. The head priestess had a pained gaze of helplessness. It wasn't the first time he had seen a look like that today. Many soldiers shared her gaze, albeit many seemed hopeful, looking at them, or rather, at the goddess around him. Tomorrow? Are you suggesting we stay here in this chaos? I understand how it may look to you, but this isn't something you can help us with. You'll understand. Tomorrow. Why tomorrow and not now? Can't you spare us some time? Silver crossed his arms as he stepped forward, trying to take control of the conversation. He couldn't let them go like that, not without some answers. He had already experienced how people in desperation often acted. Blinded by their beliefs, rather due to a lack of options of a strong sentiment, if he let them be, they may act in unpredictable ways. Silver believed that no problem had a single solution, but that was due to how resourceful and knowledgeable he was. Not everyone was like him. Not everyone was willing to risk their own safety and that of those around them for a stranger's unreliable ideals. And he knew that very well. Right now we have to quell the burning fire. They need me to lead them. It is my duty to those that have fallen. There was more to her words, but Silver chose not to press her on that front. Then leave someone behind to explain the situation. Silver. Stop putting pressure on them. We're still guests, one way or another. Hestia added as she held on his hand, pulling it back. I'm sorry. I know you want to help. That you must feel suffocated. But this isn't something anyone can help us with. Better put, nothing will change even if you help us. The priestess turned around, stepping off the street. You'll understand soon enough. Stay here for the night. I promise you, I'll explain everything as soon as we're done here. And if you can, try not to step out of the barrier. It will protect you, but if you gather too much attention, they'll come after you. Silver watched her leave with the soldiers but did not pursue. Instead, he turned around, crossing the torches with Hestia and Artemis in tow. // This doesn't make any sense. As soon as they crossed the line of torches, the world completely changed. As if stepping onto the past, the fire was completely gone. Its heat and smell, the crumbling buildings, the crackling of wood, the screams of the fiery beasts, all had vanished. In contrast, an ancient city untouched by time appeared before them. It was just as the legends described, if not greater. It was similar in size to the port city of Melon, likely housing a few tens of thousands of individuals. However, while Melon had mostly wooden architecture, the houses and streets were all utterly made of multiple types of cut stone, faintly illuminated by twinkling red lights. If Silver could describe it in any way, he'd say it was like stepping in ancient Rome. You two get inside, I'll follow soon after. I just need to look around for a moment. I need some time to process all of this. Are you going to cause trouble? Hestia asked as her eyes narrowed. I won't be leaving this barrier. If I can even call this one. All right. I'll go inside for now, the boat ride has my bum numb. So I'll see if I can rest somewhere more comfortable. Despite saying that, Hestia was unusually silent. It seemed something was going on in her mind, but she did not share it with Silver. However, to him, she was clearly holding something back. He wouldn't have noticed it, given she didn't show a change in her expression. But her calmness in the face of this madness made him realize something was wrong. The usual Hestia would have been panicking and fuming in anger. In her own harmless way. Simultaneously, her initial reaction to the situation did not escape his eyes. The contrast between then and now was far too evident for him to ignore. She knew something and was trying to act mature and focused, likely to steer his attention from something else. Silver needed some time to take it all in and think. I'll be back soon. Jump. He jumped onto a building nearby while Hestia and Artemis entered the house. Chatter. He soon heard them discuss something, but like before, chose not to listen. After all, if he did listen, they would, without a doubt, get upset. Listening would have been too obvious either way, and all it would take would be one look for them to realize what he had done. The intuition of a god, or rather, their wisdom, wasn't one to be taken lightly. Instead, Silver looked at the legendary city, bitter feelings surging within his heart. It's almost as if nothing's happening. Why would they even have a barrier like this? Rather than a barrier, this is almost like a veil, covering the truth from falsehood. It's almost like this isn't their first time dealing with this situation. Perfect coordination when dealing with the creatures. They moved around the fire without orders, as if they already knew the layout. I can understand guards knowing the city they live in, but I've never heard of an army, even one that has trained in the same place for years, operating this efficiently in the face of such a disaster. Soldiers would panic, worrying for their families and their lives, yet they did not seem to worry about any of that. They charged forward, plowing through the fire without a care in the world. They've done this before. Have the Olympians been fighting the fire for decades without the world knowing? Could it be that they abandoned their city but chose to build a bastion to prevent the fire from spreading? Could that be why they erected a barrier around their archipelago and chose not to let anyone inside? Still, what is the purpose of this barrier? To make them remember a past that has already been lost. I have too many questions. What is the truth and what is the illusion? This barrier. It's no magic. But so, what could it be? What were those soldiers from before even doing? Does it work under the same principle? Have the Olympians developed magic to such a degree that it no longer resembles it? Their culture is thousands of years older than that of the elves. Even the royals of the Great Forests trace their history to the Saintess during the Great Raid that built Orario 1,000 years ago. Anything before is fragmented history. Some distant kingdoms untouched by monsters may have longer histories, but few empires manage to last from before the age of the gods to the modern day. And that's all due to how they defended themselves. No matter how big a nation became, it wasn't free from the grasp of the dungeon. That was proven 2 decades ago when the biggest nation in the whole world vanished. In a single night. Elves survived because they developed a system for casting magic with chance without relying on the blessings of the gods. This system of mortals was imperfect before the might of Fauna, but still reliable enough to protect the people in ancient times and even today. Magic once symbolized nobility and power. Mages with the power to cast magic, a level 2 or 3 adventurer would easily cast and were hailed as war gods. The Olympians' ancestors were the first heroes of the world in recorded history, failed ones but champions nonetheless. They were the ones who braved the chaotic world and tried to cleanse the surface of monsters. Despite his many failures, Epimetheus, the hero of the fallen flame, opened space for kingdoms and cultures to flourish. Ultimately, they all branded him a failure, cast him aside, and made him the greatest disappointment in history. Silver looked at the waves in the distance, having the urge to return and forget about this. Sigh. I thought this would be a nice vacation. To enjoy some time with them, learn more about their past. But I just dragged them into another mess. At least I managed to solve the issue in Beltane. They were thrilled after it was done. I thought Olympia would make them remember their time in heaven and help us bond a little more. It would be a nice story to share once we're back home. HAAA. What a mess. I'll think about those things later. He looked at the city under the stars and exhaled. He stood there for a few more minutes and took his reliable camera after a while. Snap. A picture of the ancient world, cold and lonely. Forever engraved in a tiny parchment. Although his memories held this moment just the same, nothing was as reliable as ink on paper. He'd have painted this moment if he had the patience, but right now, he wasn't in the mood. I'm tired. Close. He closed his eyes and let the breeze brush past him. Slash later, slash. Slash bam, slash. After enjoying the cold breeze of the sea, Silver returned home just in time to see Artemis storming through the entrance. What just? Slash swoosh, slash. She stormed past him, ignoring him completely. Confused, Silver looked back to see Hestia standing by the door, looking calmly at him as she exhaled lightly. He thought about what to do, but Hestia stepped outside before he could say anything. Leave her be, she just needs some time to think. Okay. But think about what? Can I be honest with you? Silver. Of course you can. I'm the best listener in all of Orario. Something isn't right, slash chuckle slash. Of course you are. Hestia approached him, putting her head in his chest. I've been wondering recently. About how little I've been doing for you. What do you mean? You do a lot already. You're kind, Silver. Tolerant. But we both know deep down that the little I do cannot compare to the efforts you put into the familia and your relationships. Hestia spoke slowly with a faint smile. It was a seriousness she rarely showed. A type of maturity he knew she had, but chose not to, as it isn't who she was. Can that even be measured? Hestia, each person fights their own battles and tends to their responsibilities. Some can work harder than others, but it doesn't mean their work is more valuable than someone who does little, and the opposite can be said. A king can relax an entire year with nothing to do, but when the time comes to make a choice, he does it. A soldier gives their life away for their country, dying in thousands, but a commander overlooks the battlefield, commanding them and shouldering the weight of their souls. I am the captain of the Hestia Familia and have made personal or work-related choices and goals I wish to attain. And you also have your tasks as a goddess as well. Never have I considered you inept at your tasks because there is no correct way of leading a familia to begin with. It's a group effort. If you feel your actions don't quite meet the standard, then you can try to do more, but in the end, if you go and ask the others if there's anything else you can do, they'll probably deny it. Besides, you shouldn't feel pressed to do more anyway. Some gods do nothing at all aside from updating the status of their children, while others use their followers to push for their side activities. Others are even worse. But I believe none of them are wrong. The blessings of the gods follow their will, that's just how things are. However, it doesn't mean I agree with them all. Some gods are better off kicked back to heaven for their own good. I said it before and will repeat it. I'm a selfish man, one that has no time to try and comprehend the divine troubles of a god. If they're causing trouble to me and my family, I'll treat them as they deserve. These are my morals. But not all think like this, some just choose to avoid trouble altogether despite understanding the many sides of this reality. But in our familia, being carefree can be seen as one of its inherent traits, no. Right, only you would speak of a god like that. Hestia's smile deepened. But Silver, this time. I'm afraid that this issue goes beyond my expectations. You spoke of people choosing their battles and fulfilling their responsibilities. This is one of those times. Prometheus took the flame of heaven and cast it down to the mortal world, and now it has gone berserk. The proof is all around us. It is my duty to return it to where it belongs. So. What do you mean, so? Can't you see I'm pouring my heart out here? I can see that. What I don't understand is why you're making such a big deal out of this. If you need to return it, do so. Just tell me what to do and we'll solve the issue. Hestia. Silver's expression turned heavy. And the feeling he had in his stomach grew incomprehensibly large. There's something you're not telling me, isn't it? You spoke about honesty, so be frank and tell me the truth. How bad is it? He held onto her shoulders, grasping them tightly. What is it that you can't share? What is it that you believe I cannot hear? Have I not? Silver. You're hurting me. I'm sorry. I lost my composure. He let go of her, his hand shaking as he hesitated reaching out to her. But she still went after him. If things go the way I think. Promise me something. I can't. Why? Why is she looking at me like that? This is making me remember things I threw away long ago. Why does it hurt so much? She hasn't even said anything. Promise me, Silver. That this time. You'll let me do things my way. Silver struggled to say anything more. The next day, It was a long, silent night, but as he struggled to answer, the day finally came. Chatter, And what appeared before him shook him even further. What? How? The city. Notes. Chapter 312, A Divine Debt Part. The next day, What? How? The city. Silver and the others left their temporary home, stepping into the streets of Olympia outside of the barrier. But what they saw blew their expectations to the other side of the great river. They expected to see destruction, flames, smoke, and charred grounds everywhere. But what he saw surprised him like few things had done so before. The city, Olympia, was completely fine. As if the chaotic madness of last night was nothing but a distant nightmare. This is impossible. Silver was the first to react, jumping forward to look around closely. He climbed atop a nearby building, glancing at the city and its surroundings from a vantage point. Olympia was built at the foot of a mountain, so gazing down at the sea allowed him to see most of the city itself, given its angle. He looked everywhere, from the busy streets to the silent alleys, but no matter where his eyes fell upon, he couldn't see, smell, or feel any signs of the fire. Image. Instead, he saw the people walking and going through their morning as if nothing had happened. As if. It's as if the entire island turned back time. Silver was in disbelief. No matter how incredible the gods were, they were one thing, this was another. How could mortals turn back time and manipulate causality to such a degree? Not even he, at the prime of a life long gone, could do such a thing. But then again, the more he lived and experienced this world, the less impressed he became with his past life's achievements. But the conditions then were others, there was no point comparing one life to another. Still, when comparing any kind of mortal achievement to that of a god's existence, such an outcome was but expected. Could this be what that lady meant by everything would be explained today? Did she want to show this to us? Silver began putting the pieces of what he knew today, coming to a shocking realization. This feels wrong, but I can't think of other possibilities. Could the people of this land be trapped in a time loop? Their city burning at night by the flame and their soldiers fighting it off every time. It's one of the few answers that fit. This wouldn't be my first time experiencing such an anomaly. But that was a completely different occurrence. He found many oddities in the endless parallel worlds and the many Silver explored. From paradise worlds to hellish landscapes, oftentimes, he would find himself in a world so odd it was hard to affirm it was another interpretation of reality. Still, it was in these strange lands he found the deepest inspiration, many of which would eventually gather in the creation of his magnum opus. But that is a story buried deep down in the past. Wait a minute. Something isn't quite right. Why is everyone so calm? The people of Olympia moved on with their lives with no second thoughts, enjoying the morning breeze as they went on with their day. Some went to fish in the docks, others left the city and into the fields outside, many flocked to the city center where a grand market slowly took shape. They all had one thing in common, a lack of urgency. Was my interpretation wrong? Shouldn't they act differently if they're trapped in a time loop? Shouldn't the guards be acting to prevent the worst outcome? Could it be that they've forgotten about it? That shouldn't be the case either. Those soldiers were highly proficient with the situation. I'm sure they experienced it before. Besides, I remember it all clearly. Even then, what makes those guards unique? Their blessings. Maybe only those with strength can resist the pull of this strange phenomenon. Assuming that's the case, what's powering this? What kind of power aside from divinity can make such a thing possible? Silver went through a sea of thoughts, eventually stopping at the most obvious solution. The flame of heaven. Silver. HM. Ha. You finally snapped out of it, huh? How long do you plan on staying up there? It's rude to jump into someone else's ceiling. I told you that multiple times before. On the ground, Hestia raised her head in protest, trying to get his attention as she jumped up and down, powerless to pull him down from the ceiling. Silver knew he had been in a daze, so after reaffirming his findings, he jumped down, apologizing for his behavior. I'm sorry for that. It's just. This is a little ridiculous, even for me. So even you can get surprised. Artemis joked as she approached them from the side. It happens more frequently than you think. But I can't deny it this time, I lost myself there for a moment. My thoughts are all over the place. I'm slowly losing my composure. I guess this is a result of everything that has happened since Beltane. Or rather, a consequence of my behavior in the last few months. Silver looked at the torches around the street, they were different from before, rather than burning blue, they burned in crimson flames. Why maintain torches in the morning? Is it a form of prayer to the gods? Who changed them, anyway? Rather. When did time rewind? I knew it, I shouldn't have slept last night. I should have. Silver's dangerous thoughts were brought to a momentary halt as Artemis pointed out. Well. Staying here won't answer anything. Should we go after those people we met last night? They're likely in the temple on the mountain. Artemis right, I can't focus on enjoying the scenery after yesterday. Me neither. That said, let's take the long way there. It wouldn't hurt to take a look around the place. This is still the land of myths. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I can trace my ancestry to this place. There's no harm in learning a bit from the past. I want to take a closer look around the area, at least to try to quench these thoughts before going up there. That said, thousands of nameless heroes were born in these streets that stood the test of time. It would be too bad to just work all the time. Besides, I feel like we won't be able to enjoy this again anytime soon. Things look stable enough for now. If the situation were that dire, they would have been waiting for us to guide us there. Since they aren't here, I'll take it we have some time to spare. I suppose we can sightsee a little. Artemis is dying to know more about the place anyway. Look who's talking. After exchanging some words, Silver and the two followed the streets, taking several turns as they made their way to the great temple. On the way, Silver looked around warily, a strange feeling at the back of his mind as he observed the people perform their daily tasks, doing their usual activities as they came and went. Everything looks fine, but something's off. No one's reacting to us at all. To a city isolated at the tip of a peninsula and the central land of an archipelago surrounded by a flaming barrier in the middle of a river that carves the continent, it's hard to believe no one here would find us odd or even show a light degree of curiosity. We're in the middle of nowhere. This city isn't that large either, it isn't even as large as a district in Orario. Although Orario is pretty big already. This place likely has a few tens of thousands of citizens, a few times that of Beltane, so it would be hard for everyone to know each other. That said, I am walking with two goddesses. I would have expected some curiosity, especially from the children, yet they run around without care and the adults continue their business without care. How can they go past us without so much as a stare? No, that would be wrong. They do react, but their reactions are subtle, they may as well be nothing. When I look at them, it's like looking at a doll, or rather, an android. Robots doing as told. They react to us, but we're not part of their programming, so they glitch. There are also some inconsistencies. Sometimes, I see people interacting with others who aren't even there, as if they're speaking with ghosts. And when that happens, they often stop in their tracks, motionless, before resuming their actions some time later. That's the strangest thing about all of this. Had I not seen what happened yesterday, this would have been the first thing I would notice and suspect. But with both together, it's hard to take in the atmosphere. Silver had many ideas for what was going on in the city, but like before, they were nothing but his exaggerated conjectures. Chatter. Eventually, they arrived at a busy marketplace with dozens of stalls and merchants. One of them looked at Silver, exclaiming, "Welcome. We've got the finest fabrics from Kyria. Take a look. I'm selling rare fruits. You can't find them anywhere around here. Fish from the shores. Golden fish from Mercura Island. I've got it all. Chatter. Kyria. Isn't that your name?" Silver asked as he looked at Artemis. Mercura. If written down, that's a name awfully similar to Hermes. It's one of the possible translations of the titles given to me long ago. Never thought I'd hear it again all the way here. But it was to be expected. Right, they seem to pray to all of the Olympian gods around here, or at the very least, pay their respects to them. I saw many decorations and carvings in honor of the Olympian gods, albeit most of them were toward Hestia and other divine entities related to fire and the holy flame itself, like some spirits and priestesses I don't recognize. It's not out of place that some unusual details lost to time in other parts of the world are typical here. It's similar to how the Far East is a land dedicated to the Eastern gods, preserving their culture for generations. Silver. Isn't that one of the fruits Demeter sells? You're right. How did they get all the way here, huh? Silver approached the stall selling fruits, looking at the assortment of plants and vegetables, specifically at the yellow-green ones. Bananas. It's similar, but they're not the same. Orario's bananas are larger, likely due to Demeter's divine presence and them being another species. I'm certain Olympia doesn't trade frequently with the outside world, so he must have gotten it from one of the islands. Or outside the barrier. But that latter part doesn't make much sense either. Should I ask where he got it? Can we get some? I'm a bit hungry. Growl. I suppose we did skip dinner yesterday. But that won't be possible now. These people don't trade with anything I have on me. They're using copper coins. I'm afraid we'd have to trade something else for some change first. Thud. All of a sudden, something collided face first against his back, startling him. He turned back in a hurry, only to see a small girl with blue hair holding her head in light pain. Image. He also saw several flowers bundled together on the side, which Artemis promptly picked with a faint smile. A little kid. Are you okay? That was quite the crash. Here, your flowers. Cutie, take good care of them. She said as she gave them back to the girl. Hi. I'm Cyan. I've got flowers for my sister, Cyate. She loves these. I see. They are quite pretty. She's quite enthusiastic. Sigh. What did this kid deserve for her nation to burn down like that? Silver smiled. While the situation yesterday seemed quite grim, he was happy to see such a scene. It showed him that not all hope was dead. I'm bringing these flowers to her. She's sick and resting in bed. Oh. I'm certain she'll appreciate them and heal faster with such a cute little girl like you doing this for her. Artemis was genuinely happy as she patted her head, and so seemed the little girl as she beamed a smile. I'll do anything for Sayate. I'm her big sister. Then don't forget this one. Silver added as he grabbed one last flower from the ground, putting it on her bouquet. Thanks, mister. See you. She bolted off into the distance, vanishing into the crowd soon after. A rather unusual place. It's been a while since I've seen children running around so energetically. Back in Orario, most parents are still too fearful to let theirs out of sight. I couldn't see how things were back in Melon due to Evelus movements, and things weren't that good either in Beltane, although it was probably the closest place to a happy city aside from the villages I passed by earlier in our journey. I agree. But don't say such depressing things while trying to mask them with pretty words. Slash smack, slash. Artemis knocked on his arm with quite some energy, making Silver twitch his lips in pain. Ouch. You do know that hurts, right? That's why I do it. Right. Still, it seems we'll be cutting our sightseeing short. Our escort is here. Artemis and Hestia looked around, and finally, they noticed a woman standing behind them with a faint, distant expression. Silver did not miss the changes as he followed her eyes, noticing how they were fixated on the girl as she ran away. It was full of melancholy. Image. You've been around for a little while. How about we introduce ourselves once and for all? My apologies. I did not want to interrupt you, and before I knew it, I lost my timing. Speaking out of place would have been awkward. A woman stepped out from the crowd, approaching the three of them as she gave them a light bow. It's late, but I'm Rhea, leader of the Shrine Maidens of Olympia. It's a blessing to stand before the goddesses of Olympus. You honor us with your presence. Hee, no need for the formalities. She's right, miss, we're just tourists here at best. Shrine Maidens. Yes, we're responsible for all ritualistic events in Olympia, honoring the gods for generations. Yesterday was hectic, I apologize for not welcoming you all properly. We essentially threw you all in a corner without answers. There can be no greater act of rudeness. Especially towards a deity. Please accept mine and everyone's apologies. She said deeply as she bowed once more. That isn't necessary. We know it was for our good. Right, Silver. Yes. It was a situation outside of our jurisdiction to interfere. Artemis remained silent. Thank you. If you allow me, I'll explain it all in due time. Can I ask some questions then? Silver. Don't be rude. I'm curious about it too. Hey Artemis. Something's going on between them. I figured given how they acted last night. Something is wrong, and Artemis doesn't like it one bit. I hate this. They're hiding something from me. But I suppose this is my karma. It's not like I've been transparent about myself either. Silver knew Artemis well enough to tell she was royally upset, maybe even more than her time in her temple. Before, she was full of regret, helplessness, and melancholy. But now, she was upset and visibly angry. Albeit not in an ordinary sense. It was frustration. But with what? Make whatever questions you feel are needed. It's my obligation to answer them all. No. It's what I owe you. This girl is quite polite. I feel a certain familiarity with her. Where have I felt this before? Ah. Right. The girls in Artemis Familia. They're all just like her. Before continuing with their conversation, Silver urged them to move, since speaking in the middle of a crowded street wasn't comfortable. On their way to the mountain, he finally asked. Here's my first question. Where are the others? The ones we saw back then. They're all awaiting at the temple and patrolling the walls like usual. You leave no guards to patrol inside the city. Oh yeah. I've seen none around ever since we got here. Hestia pointed out as she touched her chin. There's no need for that. In Olympia, all are blessed by the flame. And that itself is a connection that binds us all. Crimes would leave behind traces easily trackable by us. As such, crime rates are exceedingly low. It's not that they don't happen, it's impossible to stop someone from acting out of passion. But whenever they do, they usually sort themselves out quickly. We also have a culture of solving the problem by tackling its roots. With our bountiful fields and the sea before us, we haven't experienced famine since our inception. With the blessing of the holy flame, monsters don't dare approach either. And so do other nations. Our economy is based around our people working to supply themselves as each island seeks and sends whatever it needs and has in excess. If you're curious about some of the products around, the truth is that Olympia was never truly secluded. While we never let anyone inside, which makes your arrival extraordinary, we have sent many voyages to the world outside. Their numbers reaching the thousands. Olympia's golden days of being the center of the world and the force at the forefront of challenging the dungeon are long gone, but we never stopped observing the movements outside. Whenever possible, we'd send a group to scout and learn more about the efforts made toward the great quests. Our predecessors failed in taking out the Leviathan and Goliath, including other famed beasts, but this doesn't mean we've given up on them. I see, a self-contained economy. That answers some things. Still, is there a reason for the secrecy? Why is Olympia secluded from the world in the first place? That goes back to the great hero's desire. The great hero. Yes, our greatest legend, Epimetheus. Exclamation point. After failing to take down the beasts of the great quests, Epimetheus received a divine oracle to return to where the flame of heaven first fell and enshrine it. And that was what he did. If you're unfamiliar with the story, long ago, the world was in chaos, attacks by monsters, plagues spreading, and people committing crimes against each other ran rampant in all corners of the continents. Unable to bear this madness, Lord Prometheus sent down the heavenly flame, naming him as his chosen with the intent of having him shed light into the darkness. He would clear all monsters from the vicinity of Olympia, gathering the brave and marching to land, bringing order to the nations of the past, consolidating the scattered tribes and nations into powers strong enough to fend against the onslaught of monsters. As they grew in power and fame, Lord Prometheus set his sight on the greatest shadows that eclipsed our world. With the support of all nations he assisted and the people that revered him, he marched against the three great quests and other ancient disasters. Failing every time but always returning alive to try another time. In the end, however, he achieved nothing. The whole world was disappointed, hating on his failures, blaming him for their losses. Their despair. The people disowned him and called him various names with disdain, marking the end of his story. But here in Olympia, we carry on his legacy, singing his tale for what it was worth. He was Prometheus, the first hero. The one that brought hope onto a cruel, dark world. How cruel. To blame another for trying to change the world for the better. It's just how people are. I'm afraid things will remain as such for Eris to be. She replied as she looked at Hestia. Outside, this would be the end of his story, but it's not entirely where it ends to us. She looked at the mountain where the great temple stood. After failing one last time, he returned with the remnants of his great army and built the great temple in the mountain. That was where the great hero received the divine flame and the mythical blade to assist him in his journey. Despite his failures, the great hero dedicated his remaining life to protect the fire and prevent it from being used by those unworthy. Over time, those seeking protection, to be close to the gods, or merely believing in his actions, gathered in the archipelago. Over the centuries, it became what you see around you. I see. So this land hasn't changed in thousands of years. Not at all. Olympia's population has always been contained, prompting little need to reformulate its space. The walls surrounding us have stood tall for over 2,000 years. The bricks beneath your feet have been there for thousands of years. The power of the holy flame preventing excessive decay over time. The holy flame. It seems quite powerful. I've noticed the excess symbolism and even your unique abilities. It's nothing to be surprised about. For us Olympians, flames are something to be worshipped. All our lives and country depend on it. It's part of our culture. We employ the flame everywhere. From the bonfires within our homes to the lights in the night. And those torches around us. Yes, they're empowered by the flame. The same goes for us. What you saw was something exclusive to those blessed by Prometheus. The ability to interact and directly manipulate the holy fire sealed deep beneath us. Interesting. Manipulate the heavenly fire. Is that possible? Her words make sense, though. It's not strange for the children of gods to gain abilities related to their patrons. It's natural for those deeply connected to their gods to end up reflecting them in some way, shape, or form. From their behavior to their status, it's a change that goes all the way to one's soul. I'm not free from that either. It's just that Hestia's divinity is centered around something far too complex for me to notice a difference in my daily life. However, her influence has already made its way to my status. The only thing I can tell Hestia has influenced me aside from that would be how comfortable I feel around a fireplace. But I can't say if that's something intrinsic to me or something I developed a taste for over time. The people of the Soma familia tend to be skillful in brewing wine, and the children of the Maic familia tend to be skillful alchemists, even if their focus is solely on combat and gathering materials. You could say the same to many others, and even though there's an argument to be had about how certain gods attract certain people, it's something to think about if there isn't something more to that fact in the first place. It makes me wonder though. If they can manipulate the holy fire, shouldn't I, a child of Hestia, be able to do the same as well? Hestia was able to interact with the barrier surrounding the archipelago, so it isn't far-fetched to think like that. Could the flame be the source of my strange emotions? It's like in Orario. This city is powered by fire and Orario by magic stones. Artemis pointed out as she looked at the torches. That does sound quite fitting. Before we move on though, I have one last question. Silver stopped at the foot of the mountain, feeling the presence of many above. Before confronting them, there was one last thing he needed to know. Feel free to ask it, the day is still long. Rhea smiled faintly, a little more relaxed than when they first met. And so was everyone, which was exactly why Silver did not hold back. Let's stop beating around the bush. Tell me the truth. What happened last night? Why is everyone acting as if nothing happened? Exclamation point. I had my doubts. I tried to ignore some of them but can't stay silent anymore. I won't climb this mountain without knowing this. Say. Are these people even alive? Notes. Chapter 313, A Divine Debt Part. Say. Are these people even alive? Rhea's expression immediately twisted as she bit her lower lip in frustration. Her hands shaking as she hid them behind her back. Silver paid extreme attention to her every movement, including even that of the goddesses around him. He saw a lack of surprise in their expressions, he figured that'd be the case. As though they aren't gods associated with life and death, noticing the oddity within this world wouldn't be outside their abilities. Rather, not noticing it would have been odd, humiliating even for people of character like them. He wondered why they hadn't said anything, entertaining him in this illusion, and that was when the pieces aligned together. He only needed her reaction. They were hiding something, these acts were only there to divert his attention from it. He felt betrayed, but at the same time, understood that they must have had a reason for it, otherwise, Artemis wouldn't be upset, and Hestia wouldn't have spoken with him yesterday night. He wondered why, despite her emotions, Artemis hadn't yet voiced her opinion. And he immediately thought of their discussion last night. Whatever those two discussed was why she's been passive and suppressing her emotions. And even if he can't figure out what they talked about, he can at least find out what was happening. So he could help in every way he could. You aren't going to say anything? Let's start from the beginning. Rhea closed her eyes, recalling memories she'd rather forget. But couldn't. When she was done, her conflicted expression settled down, being replaced by a serious, pensive gaze. You must remember what I told you before about Lord Epimetheus being tasked with enshrining the flame, right? I do. Does it have anything to do with this situation? Everything. It was merely the start of it all. You see, the flame of heaven kept monsters away, saved the country numerous times, and brought richness to the land. But it never adapted to the lower world. It was something not meant for this land. She said sincerely as she held her dress tightly. Silver looked at Hestia. The flame left heaven, the perfect world, and fell into the imperfect lower world. It got stained until one day, it reached its limit. She said as she looked away. Correct. Olympia was just the first to burn. Over time, the uncared flame absorbed the impure emotions of those around it. And no matter how much love and care we poured into it, or tried to seal it away, it only served to further down its corruption. We tried to keep it underground, to cleanse it and prevent its corruption, but it was futile. Eventually, the flame reached its limit. And it burst out uncontrollably, becoming the very nightmare its power signifies. Then, 300 years ago, it went berserk. 300 years ago. Then these people. The disaster happened on an ordinary day, at night. The flame of heaven burned away over 50,000 Olympians. Exclamation point. The inferno took everything away, leaving behind less than 200 of us, soldiers and priestesses, survivors that ran to the great temple without hesitation. We've been taking care of it ever since. We survived thanks to the Lord's blessings, stronger in us than anyone else. Otherwise, the fire would have consumed us as well. Wait. Then you mean? I've been alive for over 300 years, yes. This is crazy. I apologize, that was insensitive of me. It's the natural reaction. It took a long time for us to accept it as well. But how? Why? We did as Lord Prometheus instructed. The barrier, the illusion, and our actions are all parts of his divine decree. What you saw yesterday were what we call flaminoids. They are the creatures who used to be humans. The ones that got swallowed by the contaminated fire. The power of the divine flame, albeit uncontrollable for the most part now, still grants us with its grace if used sparingly. Immortality being one of its many aspects. What was once taboo became the norm, we did what we had to survive. So those things. Flaminoids. What are they? Monsters. Living dead. Are they conscious? They aren't like the beings found in the great abyss. Nor are they living dead. If they're conscious or not. I pray to the gods they aren't. They aren't. Hestia replied in a hurry. Thank you. It brings me. Give me a moment, I apologize. Rhea said as she turned around. Sniff, I wonder. Did their god not tell them about this? But there's something strange about all of this. Why are they calling Prometheus a lord? Silver waited for her to recover and turned back, continuing her story. What you see are their souls, burning away to this day. Their flesh may have burned to ashes, but the contaminated flame traps their soul, preventing it from going to heaven. Lord Prometheus says it's repeating the cycle of life and death on its own, defying the natural order. At daytime, it turns the flamoids back to what they used to be. But based on the memories etched onto their souls, they just end up repeating what they did every day, being reminded of the inferno when night falls. What? Burning away for hundreds of years. That's no different from being sent straight to hell. How can this be possible? Silver felt dread just imagining the kind of torture these people were going through. He wanted to look at the gods beside him for confirmation, but couldn't. Artemis held his hand, saying, the flame isn't an arcanum, but it's still extremely powerful. Defying the natural order. It isn't difficult for it. Take it as a demi-arcanum, able to manipulate the world around it through fire. It simulates reality without control. Which means it's easily influenceable. This very city is a reflection of that, the collective will of thousands of souls begging the gods for mercy. To turn back the world into what it was before. Artemis did not censor her words, speaking bluntly of the cruel reality before them. Silver's eyes shook while Rhea turned away in pain, hiding her expression. The flame complied, not out of mercy, not out of pity, nor to mock them. It just acted because it was compelled to. However, while it turned back the world into what it was before, in the end, the collective will of the souls will bring back the disaster, repeating the cycle. This. Then doesn't that mean these people are alive? If the flame make the world like this, then can't it be used to? Stop it, Silver, that path will only lead you to even greater pain. Hestia added as she looked at the ground in shame. Rhea nodded, explaining. I can understand your thoughts. We also thought like that once. But the truth is oftentimes cruel. These people are long gone. The flame may reconstruct who they once were, but it's just a facade. This world is but a reflection of what it once was. The flame is powerful, but it can't do what we want most. I tried to do it once. The most we can do now is follow Lord Prometheus' will and move on. I understand. What now? Fight them until they're all gone. I noticed how it seemed that some people are missing. Those missing are among the few who survived or fled. There used to be more, but even the flame took them. Or time. Their souls aren't around anymore, but the flame repeats the day either way. It's a cruel reminder of those that already moved on. Fighting them will change nothing either. As long as the flame remains, the flamanoids will as well. Reviving from a collection of fire sparks. Silver turned to Hestia, asking. You said they aren't conscious, how come they can still move? Why attack us even? They are akin to puppets. Fire burns once it's lit until it extinguishes, that's the fate of all flames. There isn't a right or wrong to it. But the contaminated fire is using the souls to expand, to spread itself everywhere. They're nothing to it but fuel. Why would a divine fire need fuel? Even if they are fuel, how come they haven't been extinguished after hundreds of years burning away? Because the flame prevents them from doing so. Because children burn well. Artemis said in a deep tone as her eyes grew sharp. That abomination drives the flamanoids into acquiring more souls to expand itself, growing bigger. This process prevents their souls from reaching heaven and entering the cycle of reincarnation. They're burning lamentations. How come you all use the fire then? How come it doesn't burn you all? We were scared of that too. Exclamation point. Any of us could be consumed at any moment, becoming one of those depressing flamanoids just like our loved ones. We're all frightened, even to this day. But we knew that we had to fight fire with fire. Even so, we're reaching our limits. Day by day, our numbers dwindle. Each loss makes everyone else's work harder. We make do by using cleaner portions of the flame, but even those parts we so carefully protect get tainted as time passes by. However, that changed with your arrival. I don't like where this is going. We, the Vesta's priestesses, were taught the holy flame was our only hope to sanctify the contaminated fire. We've been waiting for this to come, waiting for your descent. Vesta's flame is our only hope. I see, that's why you came after us. Vesta, so they're priestesses in Hestia's name. So she does have followers, huh? She doesn't look proud, though. It's unlike her. All of this is wrong. Silver wanted to reach out and ask, but he was afraid of the answer. Ultimately, he pushed it aside, believing it wasn't the time. In the end, it was just a lie to make himself feel better. Something is odd. Why do they refer to Prometheus as if he's not here? Prometheus has the power of divination. My grandparents told me of that. That very power caused him to steal the flame and throw it down, for it was written down that he feared what he saw in the future. Could it be our arrival was predicted? Or rather, Hestia's descent. Prometheus is a skittish god, hiding for most of his existence, so much so no one, not even Hestia, knows what he looks like aside from a few stories. Does this aspect reflect even here in the mortal plane? If they received notice of our arrival. This means Prometheus is around us right now. It's almost here, the picture I'm trying to draw. I must meet with him as soon as possible, and it shouldn't take long. I still remember his description from my grandparents' time with him, but why did he change? Why did he leave Olympia? Why did he make a familia? Why did he return? Silver's thoughts ran around inside his head, but he sorted all of them as he asked a critical question. Isn't the holy flame the very thing that's causing trouble? How is Hestia supposed to use a fire that no longer exists? But before Rhea could reply, Hestia interjected. How about we check things out first? I want to know the extent of the damage before saying anything. Please, follow me. Why? Just why isn't anyone answering me? His emotions in disarray. Silver finally understood why he was feeling strange. But at the same time, he found himself oddly at peace. Come. He focused on his goal, but it was still too soon to act. He needed to learn more. The climb to the summit of the mountain where the great temple stood was silent, with little conversation between them. The atmosphere was evidently tense, and Rhea knew it. She tried diverting their attention elsewhere, but Silver paid it no heed. Acting like this was childish, but he couldn't focus today, no matter how hard he tried, it just came out to him as being fake, so he kept quiet for the most part. Soon enough, they arrived at the temple. Its mighty entrance standing at over 20 meters in height, they entered the main hall where the gods of Olympus and the holy fire were worshipped. A grand white hall of white stone and tall columns supporting this massive structure. Statues of gods and spirits were spread out with ancient tablets telling even older stories. Image. Silver was attracted to all of them, particularly to the ones that told tales of gods he knew, particularly. We've arrived. Give me a moment, and I'll call the Holy Chancellor. He is eagerly awaiting your arrival. It's quite empty here. Silver pointed out as he looked around. He meant to say this place is beautiful. It's okay, everyone's busy, that's all. Now, if you excuse me. Rhea left through the maze of pillars, vanishing from sight soon after. Silver. You've been unusually rude recently. Try to be a bit more considerate. I have no excuse. But I have a responsibility to uncover and understand whatever situation we're thrown at. Asking questions, even if without consideration, is part of that. And so is bearing the dissatisfaction and anger, doing so beckons. At the very least, I'm not putting anyone under hypnosis. It's insulting to how I usually act, but today, I'm not in the mood to entertain anyone's feelings. I feel like you just thought something very rude. You're awfully sharp at the worst times, huh? Just try not to say it on their faces. They don't deserve it. Silver agreed, but did not voice it out. Instead, he moved to the side, looking at a statue representing a woman in a veil. A beautiful woman with a seductive body bound by cloth, she held a chalice of fire and a basket full of food and other offerings. Albeit it was all made out of stone. They got it wrong. Slightly. Silver said out loud as his eyelids twitched. Puffed. Hey Artemis. Why are you laughing? Because it looks just like you. Are you mocking me? Maybe. Just a little. This statue looks quite old. How did they carve out your image? Is this what the spirits told them you looked like? Talk about bootliking. Hashtag. What did you say? Actually, I'm curious about it. Where are your spirits? Speaking of that, I don't think I ever saw a god interact with their respective spirits. Really? I guess it can be a little rare. Many spirits live in isolation far from civilization where they can connect with nature. And those are the few that still remain in the lower world. You already know of this, but many spirits did not live through the ancient times. They eventually returned to heaven. Yes. Those that did not commit the ultimate sacrifice. Or didn't die in the dungeon. Silver turned to the side, looking at a tall obelisk full of ancient hieroglyphs. He could barely read them, but they were similar enough to the divine characters, so he could read them, even if faintly. Hestia, Mother of Fire, you who hold the eternal keys. Of the Olympian gods and this earth's great halls. The 12th divine seat, who in her grace gave way to Dionysus. Welcome to your sacred hearth of our devotion, the land of hope. Where all can feel your warmth, and pray for your warm embrace. Silver read the rest of the text while Artemis and Hestia listened on the side, with the latter smiling proudly. When he finished the text, the love of all Olympians for her, he couldn't help but say. Poor things. She couldn't take it anymore. What do you mean by that? They put all their love in a goddess whose favorite activity is eating mango ice cream on the sofa. And what's wrong with that? Humph. If we weren't in this temple. I apologize for the delay. They all stopped playing around, turning to the side where Rhea, together with a few other priestesses, escorted a man to the hall. The man was taller than even Silver and muscular. He had tanned skin and unusual light blue hair, darker at the tips. A rather rare combination. He wore traditional, ancient clothes that revealed much of his chest, with ceremonial capes around his shoulders and waist. Sharp eyes but a gentle and carefree appearance, he walked and moved like a warrior, something Silver noticed straight away. Image. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Ethon, Holy Chancellor of the Order of Prometheus. Pardon me for my late arrival. He gently bowed before the gods, but showed no similar formalities to Silver aside from a gentlemanly bow. And while that upset him a little, he understood that he was no one to him. In fact, one may even say it's heresy to treat mortals the same way as one's gods in the flesh. No need for apologies, we've barely just arrived. That said, I suppose you're the most powerful here, Holy Chancellor. Are you, the king of this country, perhaps? Hestia spoke in a clear but authoritative tone, not being too pushy but making her voice clear for all to hear. Her serious side was a rare one to see, for all the emotions he felt recently, Silver felt it cute to see her like this. She would never act like this with her familia, not in 1,000 or even 10,000 years. Not exactly. We're all commoners for as long as we worship the flame of heaven and Lord Prometheus. I'm only in charge of ensuring the city is safe as someone slightly closer to Lord Prometheus than everybody else. I'm also in charge of translating and accepting the oracles of his lordship, albeit that was long ago. Recently, Rhea has been in charge of most of it while I stay deep inside the temple overlooking the corrupted fire. It's nothing much, but it's the only place where my abilities can be put to good use. His voice seemed a bit melancholic, and Silver noticed how the priestesses reacted to it as well. Enough with the formalities. So this is the great temple I've heard so much about. Yes, this is the home of the Order of Prometheus, and the heart of Olympia. Built in ancient times, this is one of the oldest buildings in Olympia, often regarded as its origin. One of and not the oldest. Ethon pondered for a moment before replying. The precise time is convoluted, for a temple cannot come to be from nothing. Homes, quarries, roads, and other infrastructure had to be built first by our ancestors before it came to be. So if we were to see which is the oldest, it would have to be one of them. He looked towards the end of the hall, saying, a fire of miracle falls from heaven. Without burning a thing, it drives away the evil and brings life to what it touches. The great flame destroys demons. The ground shall be a large pot, and the gods' mercy keep them their dash. That's what was engraved in the deepest part of the temple. This was where our ancestors first worshipped the flame. You said oracles, as if some prophecy. How come Prometheus just doesn't tell you everything directly? In fact, where is he? Shouldn't he explain the situation to us in person? I'm afraid I can't ask for Lord Prometheus to be here. We have no idea where he is. That's odd, I thought you came to us because of a prophecy. How did you receive one if he isn't around to share it? Lord Prometheus is an unseen god. No one knows his appearance, he has never shown himself to anyone. None of the Olympians knows if he is actually living in Olympia, and where he would be if he did. That's been true ever since his time in heaven. The only one who ever truly saw him was Zeus. If anyone else saw him, they kept it quiet. I can barely recall seeing a hooded figure wandering the shrine in the distant past. But I can't say for certain if that was Prometheus or not. Silver frowned as he heard all of this. What were they talking about? This is strange. I know it may sound strange, but I'm certain that Prometheus once went to Orario and formed a familia there. After all, my grandparents were part of it. Everyone aside from Hestia went into shock. Even Artemis. While she was aware of the issues in Orario, some details were always going to be buried and censored by the guild. The priestesses opened their eyes wide with Rhea while Ethon smiled faintly. Is that so? That's great to hear. For a long time, I wondered if he was truly around, if we had been abandoned. If we were unworthy to see him. The priestesses recoiled in anguish, trying to keep their composure. If it makes you feel any better, even back then, Prometheus was known as someone who never appeared, even to some members of its familia. His appearance wasn't unknown, for he appeared before some of its members to grant them his blessing, including my grandparents. Still, better not share that detail. That I do not doubt. Still, these news are quite surprising. To think that Lord Prometheus left Olympia. I can only think of one answer. He was trying to accomplish what we failed to do. What you failed to do. Yes, you see. We haven't been waiting for the flame to go berserk. While we couldn't do much when the gods weren't around, as soon as they descended, we knew it was time to act. We sent hundreds of voyages into the world in search of deities capable of purifying the fire. Especially one amidst the Olympians. However, we failed to do so. 1 century passed quickly. You can imagine how long it takes, given how large the world is. Sending even a single voyage into the shores takes weeks, not counting the time it takes to prepare it. To dive into the world takes months. And years may pass before we receive any answer. After all, we couldn't let others know of our situation. The barrier you saw. It wasn't always there. Lord Prometheus erected it not to prevent others from entering, but to limit the corrupted flame's ability to go out once it burst out from its cradle. If the world knew of the flame's existence and what it could do, together with the Olympians' weakness, a bloody war would ensue for its possession, potentially leading to its corruption earlier than expected. We had to move silently in a world so wide it would take years to move from one side to the other in a straight line. And we couldn't just visit one place once, for a god could descend at any moment. We sought any hint of their descent, investigated all gods related to fire and the holy flame, singling out those likely willing to assist us. In the end, we weren't fast enough. Ever since then, Lord Prometheus became unusually silent, giving us only some orders to help us move on and take care of the aftermath. Maybe it was then that he moved out, trying to seek out a solution where we couldn't. Don't you think he abandoned you? Silver. Maybe it would be best if he did. Lord Ethon. One of the priestesses, a small girl with tan skin just like him, held her dress in distress, sad beyond belief. Pardon her rudeness, she's still in training. Even after so long, she's still unable to keep her composure. Honestly, I've already given up on her. Lord Ethon. Haha. Still. Lord Prometheus pitted humanity to the very end, committing a taboo no other god dared to. I believe he deserves a rest for all the penance he already committed. However, listening to you and seeing how he went out of his way to break the very stigma he held for time immemorial tells me otherwise. Even if once, he sought an answer for himself. But if you speak as in the past, I imagine he failed. Silver thought about what to say before narrating the story. Once upon a time, he raised a mighty familia that stood at the top of Orario. One so powerful that had they not disbanded, they might have been able to stand with the likes of Zeus and Hera in their heyday. At least, they had the potential to climb further than Freya currently stands. However, misfortune befell them. And the familia was ambushed by a monster in the dungeon, taking out most of them. Their captain, the one capable of saving them, wasn't around to do so. From there, I don't know much. My grandparents left the familia long before to raise my father. I only know that their captain led the familia outside Orario, essentially outcasting themselves. When he returned, Prometheus wasn't with them anymore. Only a man driven insane by his inability to save others, willing to sacrifice everything to save a world that doesn't even know it's in danger. Silver did not continue, and Ethon did not press him for answers. Understanding that something bad likely happened. I heard such stories many times before. The dungeon is unpredictable and the danger no less than the corrupted flame. Alas, we can only tackle one at a time. Maybe it was fate, perhaps it was Lord Prometheus' insight that led to this encounter, but here you are with the hope we've been so eagerly waiting for. Can we truly say he failed if you ultimately reached us? We'll have to wait and see. For now, follow me. Let me show you how we speak with his lordship, for I'm sure you're curious. Silver and the others followed Prometheus into a much deeper section of the temple. A hall very much like the one before, supported by massive pillars, a single obelisk stood at its center. Sunlight peered through glass panels in the ceiling, illuminating a single pedestal where a glorious and immaculate sword remained. In the obelisk, a large stone slab made out of a singular blackish stone had been installed, like a blackboard. It was filled with glowing letters, divine hieroglyphs. Image. This is the place. Can you see the stone monument over there? We refer to it as the God's Monument. Lord Prometheus' messages will always appear there, albeit we don't know when or how. Rhea took a step forward, adding. We act according to his messages. What is written on that monument is absolute, and we Olympians must obey. HM. The goddess of fire, Hestia, has arrived. Let her witness the flame of heaven and lead us to salvation. Is that correct? Silver asked out loud as he tried to read them. That's correct, and quite impressive. Not many know how to read the divine language. Rhea praised with a faint nod. I've been getting classes quite frequently. Besides, it's not written in a complicated way. Humph. As if there could be simplicity in Lord Prometheus' words. Silver turned to the tan priestess in training, frowning at her as he looked up and down at her. Aren't you over 300 years old? I've seen children act more mature. What? The priestess' eyes opened wide as she stepped back in shock. Meanwhile, the others either sighed or chuckled, making her even more embarrassed. Silver. You're acting immature yourself. But I'm 18. Hestia frowned, rolled her eyes in thought, and eventually exhaled as she realized there was no way to retort. Artemis seemed to want to tease him, but after thinking about it, she realized how he might tease her back, so she kept quiet. The others, on the other hand, reacted in a mixture of emotions. Aren't you the kid then? She retorted as she stomped her feet on the ground. Depends on who you ask, I'm already a father. What? Since when, Silver? I would also like to. Wait. Silver rolled his eyes as he looked at them, chuckling a little as he replied. I'm just joking, I'm too young to have a child. Now, can we get back to the topic? Ethan smiled, keeping his composure at all times, even as everyone laughed. Honestly, that made him seem quite depressing. There isn't much of a hurry, but I agree. As you can see, Lord Prometheus left behind a message regarding your arrival, likely noticing you're meddling with the barrier. You know of that. While I cannot feel nor manipulate the barrier, connecting the dots is easy. Only a god with similar authority as the Lord could manipulate the barrier. And given how quickly you arrived, he likely noticed your arrival right on time. He turned to Hestia, adding, please, sanctify the flame of heaven and save Olympia. Or should I say, the lower world. Hestia. Take me to where the contaminated flame resides. Ethan bowed, taking them deeper into the temple. Shwa. As they approached, the air grew hotter and hotter, with even Silver being affected by it. A strange emotion flared inside of him, truly. This was divinity, the power of nature and beyond. Something utterly unexplainable. Here we are, this is the Maroon Room. The flame of heaven is worshipped in this altar daily. As for the flame itself, it's located far deeper in the mountain at its own, dedicated altar. A circular room built around a large hole where purplish fire sprang from its depths, reaching out to the dome above them occasionally. Is this the divine fire? It's a bit different from the ones outside. What are those black things? The fire seemed to burn with something else, tainting it. Like a chemical experiment gone wrong. Even he could tell something was wrong with it. Hestia looked up and down and sighed with her usual troubled expression, saying, geez. I can't believe Prometheus left me with such a mess like this. Artemis frowned as well. So how do you do this? Do you need anything? Silver asked as he looked around. It isn't going to be easy, but I should be able to do it. You know what? This is my chance to show you I can actually do something and prove you wrong. I said many times before that you already do a lot. There's nothing from you to prove. Let me act cool for once. Smile for me. Give me some encouragement. Silver smiled before exhaling, looking at the flames with a conflicted expression. Artemis, on the other hand, put her hands behind her back, pensive. I'm glad to see that you're confident, goddess. The relationship between gods and their children is as unusual as I've heard. You're free to look around the country as we prepare everything. Lord Prometheus should send us a message when the time is right. Ah. What do you mean by that? Didn't you say before you don't know when he writes on that stone? I did say that, but I never said he wasn't watching. I believe, deep down, that he'll respond quickly this time. I hope there isn't an issue with that. Unfortunately, we do. You see, we must return to Orario soon. We were only passing by. Now you're in a hurry, Silver. Weren't you planning on taking the whole month off? You can spare a few days, don't you? I didn't say that, but when you have a god that writes one message every few years, I have to doubt a little, don't I? It seems you have made a decision. In case you need me for anything, talk with Rhea, she'll handle everything in my stead. Where are you going? If I may be allowed to ask. Down. I shall carve a path to the flame. I must end what my ancestors could not. With those words, Ethan walked past the priestesses, vanishing within the many corridors leading to the circular hall with some of them in tow. Only Rhea and the tan priestess remained. I suppose some introductions are due. Rhea added as she looked at the priestess beside her. This little one is Ilya. Say hi. Stop speaking like that. I'm not a child. Greetings. Speaking of that, I haven't introduced myself either. My name is Melios Silver, captain of the Hestia Familia. You can call me Silver if you prefer, everyone does so as you must have heard by now. Is it because of your eyes? Yes. My family seems to enjoy naming themselves after strange stones. I'm Hestia. And I'm Artemis. It's an honor. Ilya said as she bowed deeply. I already said enough to the formalities. I deeply apologize. She said as she bowed deeply again. Sigh. This one seems rather complicated to deal with. After some light discussion, Silver and the others left the main hall, returning to the central hall where the divine sword and obelisk stood. He looked up at the monument, asking. You know, can you do something like this? Like what? Write down magical words on a piece of stone 10 meters off the ground. Why? It would be very convenient. You know, given we are far away from home and all. I think that may be hard for her. This kind of thing seems exclusive to Prometheus. And it's not like we can go after him to ask him how he does it either. I expected you to just look and figure it out. Being a god and all. Silver. Some things are hard even for us to understand. Tell me the truth. Prometheus can only do it due to the holy flame. Gods can't use their abilities freely in the lower world, but as a deity of holy flame, he can manipulate it slightly to simulate some powers. There, happy. She replied with a scoff and a shrug. So that's a no. Yes. Bummer. Southwest, what is this place exactly? Aside from a meeting room of sorts. This isn't a meeting room. This is the sacred hill where the great heroes of Olympia prayed to heaven. And that's the altar that stores the flame sword belonging to Epimetheus. Image. Silver approached the altar, his eyes flashing with curiosity. So. That's it. An actual divine armament. One that was written down in legend thousands of years ago. Even Silver found it hard to hide his excitement. Smack. Artemis smacked his waist, but he held it in. Correct. The legends say that Epimetheus was a warrior and a priest. He was the chosen one, the first to be blessed with the fallen flame. With the divine treasure, Lord Epimetheus managed to wield the flame to drive away the chaos. Wield the flame. I thought this trait was inherent to Epimetheus' blessing, not his artifact. Both are true, but the artifact granted the hero greater power over the fire, the kind a normal person with decades or even centuries of training could not achieve. The artifact granted him a level of authority great enough to move the flame itself around. And it was said the flame followed him whenever he went. Until the day it came for him to enshrine it forever. An artifact. You know, I did ask this before. No. You didn't let me finish. Again. Because you already know the answer. I'm not calling any divine artifact from heaven. Why not? Prometheus did it for her champion. Why can't I get a divine item too? I don't have anything useful. I already told you that. Well. I could leave it around just like they did with the sword. Do you know how much confidence this would bring to everyone? Very well. I'll summon an artifact. A very big cinder log right atop your head. Silver smiled smugly. Why are you smiling at me like that? Hey, do you know who else has a? Stop talking. Bonk. Ouch. Why did you, of all people, hit me? Silver asked as he turned to look at Artemis. Because. You're greedy. I thought you were happy with what I gave you already. Stare. Ilya looked at the love triangle between the two goddesses and Silver, and she couldn't help but blurt out. Playboy. Sigh. What can I say? The goddesses love me. Sometimes I try to deny it, but I know myself best. I was wrong. You're just a pervert. The kind all the girls end up falling for, yes. Silver said smugly as he shuffled his hair. That's the worst kind then. Heh. Anyhow. If the sword can control the flame, why not use it? The Chancellor is the only one with the authority to wield it. Otherwise, it remains sealed. It's a divine artifact, no. Can't you use it to sanctify the fire? Control the flame to burn off all impurities? No way, that's not how it works. That isn't just any artifact, that's a weapon meant to punish the gods. Holding it would only weaken me or worse. Huh. I didn't know that. Can I hold it? No. What type of question is that? You can't blame me for being curious. I'm standing before a divine item after all. Besides, I'm technically qualified to wield it, right? Exclamation point. My grandparents were some of the strongest children of Prometheus, carrying on his blessing until my mother was born, which was then passed down to me. Even if you say Hestia's blood courses through me, I lived most of my life with half of my blood, if not more, being related to him. And I'm pretty capable myself. I say, once this fire is sanctified, I would like to bring it on an adventure with me. Absolute not. Ilya exclaimed as her face grew red. Why not? This is a weapon meant for a hero to drive away darkness. This is pretty much what I do on a daily basis. Silver. You just wanted to pose, don't you? Artemis asked with a deep sigh as she facepalmed. Not quite. Once the fire is completed, unless the sword goes away with it. What purpose would it have if not a reminder of the past? This city is in shambles. It may be rude of me to say so, but these people won't need it anymore. But that's not the case to me. The dungeon grows restless. A weapon like this could very well signify the difference between the repetition of history, or a new wound on that creature. Then I can pose with it too, doesn't it look cool? Either way, is there anything else connected to the hero? I'm curious about it all. Well. Follow me. Ilya led them outside the temple, going on a small tour around the town. The sun slowly set as night arrived, and with it, the promised time. Notes. Chapter 3:14, A Divine Debt Part. Later that day, A revelation. Inside the temple, Silver stood with Hestia and the others as Rhea shared the news they so eagerly waited. The goddess must be escorted to the deepest portion of the sanctorium. That is what Lord Prometheus told us. Ilya added as her expression went solemn. Silver knew this moment would come, asking. What is the sanctorium? The sanctorium is an underground space that spreads all over Olympia, being equivalent to the dungeon to some degree. It is supported by the lights of the flame of heaven, and if you keep going further, you'll reach an underground altar for praying. Why? You ask why we have it. Or its purpose. That's a simple question to answer either way. The sanctorium once housed the entire order of Prometheus at its prime. It's also where we used to perform a multitude of ancient rites and prayers. Deep below, next to the flame, it's also where we bury our dead, so their souls may find their way to heaven uninterrupted. Of course, we took precautions so as to not have their souls consumed by the raging fire. We never fed bodies to the flames either. The underground hallways were meant as shafts meant to release the building pressure of the flame, dispersing it throughout the land. It worked for thousands of years until it failed unexpectedly. So it's time for me to get to work. Precisely, allow me and the other priestesses to show the way. We'll also act as guards until we arrive. Silver nodded, looking at the end of the hall. Let's go. Something wrong. The sanctorium is a sacred place. We can't just let anyone from outside inside. It's the rules. I can understand your rituals, but if that's the rule, then there shouldn't be a problem. Silver stepped forward, touching his chest. I'm the first child of Hestia and grandchild of Prometheus. I'm sure he wouldn't mind it if I overstepped my boundaries a bit. And if he finds it offensive, we can just kick his ass just the same. Artemis added with a faint smile. Cough. Ilya coughed on the side while Rhea struggled with what to say. Stomp. Nope. I don't like it. Huh. Hestia stomped her feet on the ground, exclaiming out loud. If Silver isn't coming with me, I'm not moving an inch. Silver found her actions a little childish given what was on the line, but compared to how she was acting before, this was more like her. In the time they spent together exploring the city, Hestia's suppressed emotions had been thrown out into the wind as she dragged him around like a cloth. It was almost as if she wanted to do everything before nightfall, which was understandable given what would happen once the sun set. While the fire had yet to spread, the tension was palpable. Ilya looked at Silver, but he shrugged without a second glance. Don't look at me, the goddess has proclaimed her stance. I agree with this as well, there's no harm in it. Artemis added as she smiled faintly. If you can't make a decision, how about you go ask the higher-ups? It's best if I'm around, else she may end up causing trouble. Really? Ilya looked at Silver with a complex expression, the same one she gave him last time they were in the temple. The look of someone looking at trash. Silver scoffed at her gaze, making her all the more upset. I hate it that you're right. Sigh. Very well, I'll ask the Chancellor. Yippee. Now. Artemis, Silver, and I have work to do, so in the meantime. Artemis shook her head, waving at her with a face full of displeasure and a pout, saying, Fine, go have fun and throw me away. I don't mind. I'll take a look around in the meantime. She's acting strange too. What does she mean by that? There's nothing to do outside. Silver wanted to ask what she meant by that, but before he could do so, Rhea added. Reaching the inner depths of the sanctorium will take around a day, so keep that in mind. What? A whole day? Just how deep is it? That's hard to say. I've never thought about measuring it. The depths of the sanctorium are connected to the maroon room, correct? Yes. They are. But what about it? Ilya asked as she showed confusion. Let's just jump inside, it'll cut us the time. Why am I not surprised? Because that was the most obvious thing for him to say. Hestia and Artemis nodded at their words while everyone else in the room paled. Are you insane? Do you know how deep that goes? Or is it your intention to feed yourself to the fire? Stop with the jokes. It was just a suggestion. I'll go with whatever method you prefer. We're walking there. Silver shrugged, following Ilya as she stormed inside the temple, leading them underground. Silver. Is something wrong, Artemis? Before he could follow them, Artemis stopped him in his tracks, holding onto his hand. Just stay still for a moment. Yes. Kiss. Artemis pulled him closer, getting on the tip of her toes as she kissed his forehead. Gleam. While he didn't notice it, a strange mark formed on his forehead, vanishing soon after. What? But before he could say anything else, Artemis put her finger on his lips, saying, Now, hush before they realize you aren't around. This. If you wanted it, you just have to ask. Artemis looked away in embarrassment at his lines, replying as her cheeks flushed slightly. Even I know this isn't the proper time. Let's say this is for good luck, now on with it before I lose my composure. Sure. We won't take long. Take care in the meantime. Chuckle. That I know how. She replied as she waved at him. Once Silver vanished in the halls, Artemis' smile vanished as she put her hands before her. Can you do it? Please.